Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a good place to forget bad things. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Jeff Marchiafava.
Hey!
Suriel Vasquez.
Hello.
And first time actually on the MinnMax Show itself, Adam Biesener.
You even got the name right. I'm always impressed.
Thank you. Who are you, Adam?
So I was Game Informer's PC editor for a decade, almost literally to the day. And now I do other far more boring things, but, you know, I still have a job, so that's exciting.
Yeah, hey, it's a real privilege.
But yeah, I mean, long time, PC guy my whole life, strategy guy, Firaxis guy, relevant to the segment,
and,
obviously.
Absolutely, because I think of you as not only the person that went on the XCOM Enemy Unknown cover story trip with myself and Ben Reeves back in the day at Game Informer, which was very exciting, and we got to fall in love even more with Firaxis and all the developers there. But then at the same time, you got to review Enemy Unknown at Game Informer, and so you're very relevant to the discussion today because we're going to be talking about XCOM Chimera Squad, the new standalone XCOM game on PC. But that's not all, because after that, we're going to talk a little bit about Mario Maker 2, some Nintendo updates. Suriel, you've been playing Guilty Gear Strive.
That's right.
Hot.
Have been.
We'll get some tabletop recommendations from Jeffem. And then we're going to be joined by Sam Barlow, the developer behind Her Story, Silent Hill, Shattered Memories. Suriel, very important to remember.
Not Homecoming.
Yep. Despite what I say in the interview, it is not Homecoming. Really felt bad about that. But then also Telling Lies, which came out in 2019. It's in some ways kind of the spiritual successor to Her Story, and it's now coming to consoles. So we're going to talk about basically telling stories in this age of webcams now, because that is what Sam Barlow is known for. So he's an interesting voice to talk to about this. And he also teases about his next project, which is going to be a horror game, kind of a return to some of the aspects of Silent Hill that he's worked with in the past. And then for community questions, we're going to be joined by a wonderful trio of people, some formerly, I guess they're all formerly of Kotaku, because we have Jason Schreier, we have Maddie Myers, and Kirk Hamilton, who are forming a new podcast called Triple Click. So they're going to join us and answer some questions from the community. Couple things to set the table here. Mintrax. Adam, we have a music podcast called Mintrax, and it's hosted by Matt Helgeson.
I remember him.
Wonderful lad, and good Lord, does that man know his music. So it's very fun. So this week's episode is, our special guest is going to be Mike Drucker, who you might know. We interviewed him on the Game Informer show a while ago, but he was at the Nintendo Treehouse for a while, wrote for games like Kid Icarus Uprising, and then went on to write for Jimmy Fallon. Right now he's writing for Samantha Bee. He's a very funny guy, and so he chose for his album for Matt Helgeson to review Weird Al's Bad Hair Day. And Helgeson chose for him to listen to Steely Dan's The Royal Scam. So it's the matchup for the ages, Weird Al versus Steely Dan, this week on Mintrax, which is a standalone podcast feed, so please check that out. And then also a reminder for everybody that MinFax is happening this Sunday. It's our weekly community Q&A. This Sunday is going to be the call-in show. The last Sunday of every month for MinFax, we have a community call-in show, or if you support us at the $20 tier, we'll call you up from the Discord, and you can ask us anything you want, talk to us about games you've been playing, anything under the sun like that. So please check that out and let me know if you have any questions about how that whole thing works. But for now, XCOM Chimera Squad. I've played maybe an hour and a half. So the very earliest stages. Jeffem, how much have you played here?
I haven't played any.
Great, but you're an XCOM fan and you're a fan of Adam Biesener. Yeah. And then Suriel Vasquez, how much have you played?
Played about 2 hours or so, maybe a little further than you are.
Okay.
I think it's enough to kind of suss out some of the larger campaign aspects, as well as how the encounters are different.
Yeah. And Adam, how you doing over there?
Somewhere around 6-8 hours.
Okay.
I really wanted to get through the first investigation, and I couldn't quite make it because, you get what you pay for, Hansen.
Interesting. That's very fair. So this is such a weird release from Firaxis. I love their more experimental side things. And the fact that this is standalone, releasing on Friday, and also that it's $10. And I think once May 1st hits, then it shifts over to $20. We talked about it, I think, on last week's episode of the podcast. But it's a cool, standalone, funky experience. But Adam, what do you think about it so far?
It's good. It's very much more XCOM. In some ways, but it's clearly been designed by people who have played the hell out of it and who understand the game on a really deep level and understand what makes it fun and how different that still feels like XCOM, but has some different things to it and really focuses in on some of not all of the things that XCOM 2 do really well, but some of the things that it does really well and kind of expand on those things.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where just playing it is like, oh, this seems like an interesting game for fans of XCOM and maybe fans of visual novels, which is not, two bubbles that I imagined overlapping, but like the fact that they're emphasizing story more, these characters, is like, I don't think I want that from my XCOM. But at the same time, it's like, well, they've released several XCOM games at this point. Let them experiment. And like, the writing is solid. I think it's like fun, and they're trying to play up these characters' personalities a little bit more, although Adam is grimacing out of the gate.
Solid is not the adjective I would describe. Use to describe the writing. I mean, it's fine. Like, it doesn't actively offend me, but I mean, I don't know. The story is, as always, sort of in the world and in the sort of character of the aliens that you're dealing with, and now that you have on your squad and stuff like that. And sort of the look and feel of the world is all really cool. I don't want to offend anybody who worked on the game or anything, but man, yeah.
It's just not for you. Yeah. Well, you're in it for the gameplay. Yeah. And how do you feel like the gameplay changes have escalated or changed XCOM overall?
So there's really the big huge thing, two big huge things. One, you have, instead of one big map where you're sort of moving from this area and then you run into some aliens and you deal with them, and then you run into this other patrol and you deal with them, and then you get to the door that you have to get through to get to the. Instead of doing that, you proceed through discrete encounters, right? And so you'll have, maybe a mission will be 1 to 3 encounters is what I've seen so far. And each one of those is a really constrained small map with a bespoke map on it, right? And like different, set start positions for the aliens and stuff like that. And so they're kind of smaller, tighter tactical puzzles almost that remind me of, more than anything, of Into the Breach, actually.
Oh, interesting.
If anybody remembers that from the FTL guys, Subset Games. Into the Breach, Game of the Year for me, whatever the hell year that was. But this feels the same sort of, has the same sort of thing where you're trying to knock out enemies before their turn comes up, because it's not I go, you go. It's an actual turn order. This time per unit, it's all my guys go and then all your guys go.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to, and you can see where people show up on the turn order. So you're trying to knock out the enemies or disable them or kill them or whatever before their turn comes up to really minimize the incoming damage that you have. So that's interesting. The breach mechanic is awesome. The breach mechanic, like everybody hated in XCOM, not everybody, but a lot of people hated in XCOM, where you're going around the map and you step over the invisible fence and then boogly boogly, here's 6 aliens that, oh God, where did they come from? I had no idea, right?
Right.
That kind of always felt crappy. It always kind of felt like you were getting ambushed. Well, you get to be the ambush guy now, right? Like,
it's nothing but ambush.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's super fun. It feels really good. Like, it makes you feel really awesome when you drop 2 faceless before combat even starts, right? Like, and you get different breach abilities and stuff like that. That all works incredibly well, in my opinion. The second thing that's really different from sort of, we'll call it classic Firaxis XCOM, and there's going to be some nerds who are all about, hating on the Firaxis XCOM, and we don't need to worry about them. But anyway, is the fact that you have actual agents with, instead of just generic dudes or ladies, with classes, sniper and shotgun dude, and I don't know whatever else there was, assault rifle dude, whatever. Yeah. You have actual agents that have, backstories, which again kind of suck, whatever, who cares? But more importantly, they have special abilities. First time I got a Viper on my squad, and I used a tongue pole to grab a hostage and get the hostage out of harm's way and complete a mission that was looking dicey. Like, that was really cool. It's really cool to use those abilities to solve things a little bit more creatively, because in XCOM 2, particularly in the early game, you have a pretty small number of tools in your toolbox in terms of just what you can do, right? You flank dudes, you throw grenades to create some cover. Here you have a lot more things that you can do, and that tongue pole is just one example.
I saw Jake Solomon tweet. He said, "Hey, when I designed the Viper in XCOM 2, I truly had no idea that there was a quote-unquote thing for female human-snake hybrids. What a world. I don't mind. I'm not on this earth to play goalie. I just had no idea." Apparently there's
it's Rule 34, right?
Yes, a big community for those Vipers in XCOM 2, which, hey, to each their own. What are you going to do? Suriel, do you like it so far?
I think it feels a little bit more of an XCOM made for me, in that I wasn't as big of a fan of like between missions, you're kind of like you're basically trying not to paint yourself into a corner through the campaign stuff of, hey, you need to manage kind of an economy effectively between missions and like your soldiers and stuff. And here, that a lot of that is very minor, where you're sort of just picking which upgrades you want to give your soldiers and like where you want to assign certain people to go like do research and, make kind of like do like spec ops deals where they're kind of like infiltrating areas without like it being a combat thing.
Yeah, it's a timer.
And there's less management of like, you can set when you start a campaign, you can set it so that your characters heal completely between missions instead of like, hey, you have to manage your character's health over the long term,
which is pretty wild. Yeah.
And so I like the kind of smaller, more puzzly encounters, and especially like Adam said, I like that when that you are the ambusher in a lot of cases. That said, I think that like I don't know that I'm going to be able to get over like the long term thing of, hey, this guy's like right next to me and I have a 56% chance of hitting them, and then like I spend like 4 turns trying to get this one guy down, and in the meantime, like it's either that or I figure out like a different way to approach the encounter. But just like random rolls always are kind of finicky with me. But I'm also like not super into the story. It seems like, okay, it's passable, but I think what a lot of people liked from those XCOM games were kind of making their own stories.
Right.
And so this definitely feels like, let's make an XCOM for people who kind of had any sorts of complaints with the with our XCOM games. But I don't know that the story they're telling here so far feels like a good replacement for like, hey, I've decided to make, an XCOM group made out of all of my friends, and I'm gonna tell this like kind of improv D&D story.
I hear you, and I definitely prefer that too. But at the same time, it is that feeling of like, well, I've already done that several times. Sure. Like I'm interested to see what their take is. And like the world, I think, is interesting, like evolving from, I think it's like 5 years after XCOM 2, and the day that, aliens, humans living together, there's also hybrids. And then like it gives a good opportunity for different storylines to pop up. Like the first, you get an option early on about which thing you want to investigate, which path you want to go down out of the gate. And one of them's like, okay, there's this religious sect called the Sacred Coil that are obsessed with the true vision for how human alien hybrids should exist and stuff. It's like, okay, that's enough of a framing where I'm a little bit intrigued about what this world is like in these days, even though I wasn't, reading XCOM books in my free time or anything like that. I don't know. I'm still
Maybe you should have been.
I really should. I'm trying to get a sense of to what extent this is, and it's not on the extreme end of being like the Civ Rev, but I'm trying to get a sense of, do you think it is a streamlining of XCOM overall? Do you think it is them trying to reach a different mass audience with a different art style and this smaller, cheaper package?
I think it definitely, like, you could make an argument that this feels more like a mobile game in that it takes place in more smaller, discrete chunks. It doesn't have the giant maps that you have to worry about loading into and loading out of and being able to sit down for 45 minutes to play through this map, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily bad. Like I said, I think it focuses on some things and lets some other things sort of fall away. And what you like about XCOM or don't like about XCOM personally, I think that's going to inform how you feel about Chimera Squad.
Yeah. Are you going to keep playing it?
I mean, I don't play much of anything other than like old weird games these days. And like I've been playing a DLC for Master of Magic, which is a game that came out in like 1991.
Wait, but they did like the Age of Empires 2 thing of like releasing new DLC for it?
It's it's actually a dude made this like hardcore mod by reverse engineering the code and like rewriting the AI and fixing a ton of. And then this publisher Slitherine, who also formerly Matrix Games, I think then they acquired Slitherine. Anyway, there's this like hardcore strategy publisher, bought the rights and then brought that dude on as like a consultant kind of a deal, but gave him a job and then gave him some more access to like some QA resources and stuff like that to take the mod and release it as an actual DLC for the game. So it's like you can buy it for, I think it's like, so you can like buy it on GOG now. It's awesome. It's called Caster of Magic.
So that's what you've been doing.
I recommend everybody gets it.
In like a post-Game from the World, this is your strategy, is just to go back for the most nostalgia-drenched old games?
Oh yeah. No, gaming is like, it's like all comfort right now, especially with all this.
The world and all. Well, sweet. I was impressed by Chimera Squad. I was like, oh, I'm curious to try it out, but I don't know if I'm going to stick with it. But I had a better time in those first, in the first hour and a half than I expected. And like, I think it looks better than I was expecting too. And it's like, I think I'm going to stick with it. I think it's an interesting release overall.
I feel like they definitely smoothed off some of the jankier edges of the graphics and sort of the transitions between animations and stuff like that. You still occasionally get a dude going like, and then the bullets go that way, right? Because they didn't line up the gun, right? But it's once in a while, right? It's a lot smoother of a presentation, in my opinion. They really did some work to kind of get that a little bit more nailed down.
Yeah. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, it's good.
Yeah. Do you have any burning questions for Jeff Hum? You haven't talked to him in a while.
Wow, I did not expect to have that thrown at me.
We just talked for like 10 minutes while you were trying to figure out whatever you were working on the computer. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, we were on the call for like 15 minutes before this even got started. So we already worked out all that.
Hey, Adam, I do have one memory for you. Do you? I think about this so many times, Adam, and it was when you managed to fall out of your chair at Game Informer. But you fell for like 45 seconds. It was just like the loudest, weirdest noise coming from your back corner of the office, and it lasted long enough for me to hear it and be like, what the hell's going on? And then scoop my chair all the way over to catch like just the very last moments of you falling.
How is that possible? Is it him just going, whoa, 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 as he's slowly leaning back?
Yes. It was incredible.
I have no memory of this.
Well, you did hit your head pretty hard, so.
Oh, there you go. I do remember standing on my desk. If you remember the desks in the old sort of zone in the office, right? They were like the built-in, like pine, whatever. They're not like desks, and they were kind of old and janky. I decided to climb up on one at some point. I think I was doing something really stupid. I was like moving some monitor cables, or maybe hanging something from my light fixture or something dumb like that. And I'm not a small man, and the whole thing just broke. The whole piece just like chunk fell off, like landed. It was actually being held up by the gaming PC on one end and my Mac tower on the other hand, on the other side. And I got to hear about that for many a year after that happened.
I think that was the desk that JV inherited, and at some point he broke it in half too.
It's made of balsa wood, basically. Yeah. Although the story I'm learning here is that, Adam, you're basically like the O.J. Simpson from Naked Gun of the Game Informer office, just wandering in, falling into a bear trap, just confused about where you are at all times. And then you murdered that woman.
Gun again. Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. No, I watched it. Totally holds up. Like 2 weeks ago, I watched it. It's great.
Are you serious?
Beautiful.
It's probably like with Dan Reichert before he moved away. We watched it. We watched all of them. It really will make you laugh. So if there's one parting message from this XCOM Chimera Squad segment, it's go back and watch Naked Gun again because it's very silly.
Okay, so now imagine an XCOM game where the point is like your biggest obstacle is accidents that you have to avoid versus actual enemies, and
it's all just pratfall stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the you and the accidents are interlevied this time around. So
perfect. Adam, you're welcome back whenever you'd like, but we have other things to talk about. Would you mind clapping out, dude? Kyle Hilliard, welcome to the show.
Hi.
We all missed you, and we all love you.
Oh, thank you.
And everybody in the comments, make sure to let Kyle know that they love him and appreciate him. Jeffem, do you love and appreciate Kyle?
Oh, so much.
Great, and that's...
Did you guys just like talk a bunch of crap about me in the last segment?
No. Kyle, I want to talk briefly about two fun Nintendo updates where earlier this week, very late at night, Nintendo just said, bam, dreams are coming true, moving on, with their Mario Maker 2 update, their final Mario Maker 2 update, which they added, it seems like almost everything people have been begging for.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think the thing that people are begging for are like just more templates, right? Like they want a Mario Brothers 2 template. They want like Mario Land templates, which are like huge asks. You know what I mean? Like, but as far as the stuff that was added, I think it was interesting. We got close to some Mario Brothers 2 stuff. You know?
Yeah. Well, so instead of the Mario 2 template, they added a version of Mario from Mario 2 that can pick stuff up like Mario 2. It's like, oh, that's a really cool idea and a cool addition. And then the one that everyone is losing their minds over is something that we even asked Tezuka in our rapid fire from E3 back at Game Informer, which is very fun to go back and look at. I went back and watched it and really enjoyed it, which is obnoxious maybe. But they finally added the ability to create a world map in Mario, which is so satisfying to see.
And you can do eight world maps with 40 levels, I think was the number. So I mean, like, you can make a full Mario campaign complete with overworld, which is pretty nuts.
Well, this is that wild thing too of trying to figure out now, like, yeah, if someone wanted to make Super Mario World, how close could they get? Like 80% of the way there, or 98?
Yeah, I mean, 80 probably, realistically.
Yeah, yeah. But I saw. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's wild to me that it's like the last update. Like they've said, this is the final update, and it's also pretty crazy that all this stuff has been free. You know what I mean? Like a lot of this stuff, DLC and other games, I feel like.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's just, I saw some people obviously are happy with the update, but also just lamenting like how weak the support for Mario Maker 2 has been compared to the first one. Like the first one just kept rolling out new things all the time, and this one it's been real dry bones. And then all of a sudden, hey, here's the world map, and we're out. Bye, everybody. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, it's worth celebrating, but not the sustained life.
Do you think Mario Maker 3 is like in the works? Are they thinking about it? Because I don't think so. I think they're done with Mario Maker for a while at this point.
I mean, I don't think this thing has tanked, but you think about if you take the resources that it would take to make that versus let's just make another new Super Mario Brothers game for the Switch. I mean, the amount of money they would make off that is a juggernaut. And like, I think they would need a reason to go back. And at this point, they're really running out of reasons. I don't think Super Mario Land as a theme is enough of a reason.
That's going to be weird though, because like, what does a new Super Mario Brothers game look like after Mario Maker? Because if you think about like people have gotten so used to like the Kaizo style, let's make a really hard level to go back to like, hey, you know, in this one we just had a really nice slope where you slide down and there's like the Koopas there and you just make it to the end of the level and it was fun. Like,
yeah,
is that going to play after people have gotten so much of Mario Maker?
I think so, because you think about the circle that you're in, which is Twitter press making diabolical levels and people writing stories about how hard these levels are and just crazy GIFs, right, on Twitter, compared to the average Mario consumer that probably doesn't even know a game called Mario Maker exists. And so if they change the art style a little bit and release a new 2D Mario, I still think there's plenty of people that will be hungry for that.
Yeah, I had this weird thing that happened. It was when we were at Game Informer, and our IT guy, who we didn't interact with a lot, he came up once when I was reviewing Mario Maker for Wii U.
Okay.
And he worked in the Game Informer office and wasn't like aware of the game.
Yeah.
Like not the biggest gamer, obviously, but like it was so funny that he was fascinated by it and was really excited about it. And he was like, "Oh man, if they released like just classic Mario I would buy a Wii U." And I was kind of like, "Man, the Virtual Console is right there in front of you, and this game is like that thing that you want exists, man."
How's that?
Like, I think he's just like a representative of like you're saying, Hanson, that larger sort of like outside that little circle Mario fan that like doesn't.
I don't think it's small though. I think that, yeah, I see it on Twitter and stuff, but like I feel like that community is growing because of stuff like this. But
sure, yeah.
But also what new ideas do they throw into Mario that haven't been done at this point?
Oh, they can figure something out.
Oh, man, you wouldn't believe it. Oh, the things they'll come up with, Surreal, it's going to blow your mind. I mean, I'm sure when they release Super Mario Odyssey 2 later this year, everybody's going to be over the moon with all those new ideas.
Well, no, but I'm talking about like specifically for like 2D Mario. Because what was the last 2D Mario before Maker? It was like New Super Mario Brothers 2 on the 3DS, right?
Well, the Wii U one, right?
Oh, did 2 come out after that, though?
Oh, these are good questions.
That's a close window. But yes. And in that one, it was like, hey, gold, right? What if everything was gold? It's like, well, if you have to pick a theme, I guess it's a theme. We all love gold members.
Sure. Like the last new idea was like the propeller suit and a couple of things in the Wii game. But
yeah. Anyways, also they announced an Animal Crossing update. Now you can make shrubs. Very exciting. Have art in your museum. Have a garden shop. And also one of the seasons that they have going up is wedding season, where it looked to me at least like you can make your villagers marry each other, which is a dream come true if that's how I'm reading it, and it's correct. But
I mean, the big news with Animal Crossing though is that it's just like the greatest selling game of all time. Like, did you see that NPD stuff? Like,
no, actually I didn't.
Already outsold all the previous Animal Crossings combined. It was like the best selling game of March by like a significant margin. The second best selling game of the year after Call of Duty Warzone. Like, it's insane.
Wait, Warzone? That's a weird thing. So is it counting downloads for Warzone? What?
For Modern Warfare. I think Modern Warfare. Yeah.
Yeah. I sort of combined them. But yeah, like Animal Crossing is just like, there's like even people talking about it maybe being like one of the biggest like entertainment launches. Like they're giving it like that kind of label now.
I think didn't they say like that it's outsold, like there's a headline: Animal Crossing New Horizons launch sales surpass any Mario or Zelda in the US.
See ya, suckers.
It's just steamrolling.
And isn't it not,
everything.
the MP doesn't include digital sales, right?
Yeah, it was at the top of the list without including digital sales.
Oh my mother of God. I love it. What a fun game to be that successful. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, it's wild. Oh, I mean, and just to go down that path again, real quick, NPD, like Persona 5 Royal was like number 6 or 7 for last month, which is like insane to think about, like Persona 3. And like no one even knew what that game was. Right. And now the re-release of like basically the Game of the Year edition Persona 5 is like one of the top 10 selling best games of the month it released. Like,
and at the same time, I was kind of underwhelmed. Maybe I'm nuts, but they announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake sold 3.5 million, I believe.
In 3 days, yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, obviously having the physical versions in stores would have helped them a lot. But then just thinking about when 15 launched, remember they made such a big deal about like, it's the fastest selling Final Fantasy of all time. And it was a little bit screwy numbers of like, it's the most shipped Final Fantasy. So you never know exactly what that means. But am I insane to be disappointed by Final Fantasy 7? Like 3.5? I think I was expecting more. Because that includes digital.
In our predictions, that was one of my sort of like predictions that we like kind of was that I thought Final Fantasy VII would exceed expectations in a huge way.
Right.
And I don't know that it has. I think it has met expectations, you know?
But who knows? I'm sure it'll continue to climb up the charts. Hey, Suriel Vasquez.
Yeah, that's me.
How are you, man?
I'm good, you know, podcasting.
Are you losing your mind in your apartment? Do you feel like you're getting a little bit screwy over there?
No, I don't think so, but you tell me, I guess.
Do you have a tough time?
What's written on the wall behind you in blood, Suriel? I can't read what that says.
Those are just sacrifices. But I'm consciously doing. I don't think that's anything weird.
No, you've been playing Guilty Gear Strive.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the beta, which was it was one of those betas where they give you a very set time of you are playing from. In my case, it was 2 to 7, and then we're taking the servers down. And this is all in Japan time, so one of the sessions is like 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. or something like that. But I played quite a bit of that, even though the lobby and connections were very bad for most of it.
Yeah,
because they Arxis likes doing their weird like player lobby things where you can walk around and it's like interactive. And in this one, it's maybe their worst implementation of it yet because it's like this side-scrolling thing. And the idea is that you're supposed to stand around and you hold down the square button and you'll like pull out a sword that says, I'm ready to fight. But I guess the way that I ended up doing it was that if you put away your sword, that's the only way you can challenge someone with their sword extended. But I think everyone thought that both players had to have their sword extended and then they just fight if they collide or something. So it was this weird thing of like trying to like troubleshoot how to get into a match. And when you got in, it's like, oh yeah, no, the server's going to kick you out because the connections are bad.
Oh boy. Well, just zooming out a little bit, Guilty Gear Strive, this is the new fighting game from the team that made Dragon Ball FighterZ. And just because this isn't like a new version of one of their old Guilty Gear games, this is like a new generation of Guilty Gear. This is like
the next one. Yeah, Strive has an IV in it, so it's like basically Guilty Gear 4.
I see. I'm sorry, Jeff Lem's eyes have actually rolled out and rolled across his floor. What do you think so far about the fighting itself? How's it holding up?
It's very weird because I think that a lot of people were ready to get into this one because it's, kind of their next step up visually. I think it looks incredible. A lot of the visual panache of the game, I think, is really super strong. I think a lot of the systemic changes are kind of, they don't give me a good idea of what they want people to like. I don't understand what they want people to focus on in this game, because they mention a lot that hey, we want to give new players a better starting ground. We don't want this to be overwhelming for new players, but a lot of the changes they've made are kind of like they kind of work against that. So Guilty Gear had this thing called the Gatling combo system, where basically if you pressed any of like the punch, it'd be basically their equivalent of light, medium, and heavy comboed into each other very easily. And in this game, it's not the case. It's more like Street Fighter, where you have to find very specific attacks that combo into each other by like troubleshooting.
Yeah.
And so that feels like that doesn't feel super newbie friendly, because I think one of the things people like about those flashier games is that you can just mash buttons and you can just combo. And there's no auto combo here. There's nothing like that I think that have been in more recent fighting games. And they've stripped out a lot of the things that made Guilty Gear a little bit more complex. So you still have like you still have some of the mechanics, but a lot of those have been simplified. The combos are way easier. It's a little bit slower. Like air dashes are slower, but you can block in the air more easily. So they're making a lot of like alterations to the combat system that feel sort of like at odds. I'm not sure if they want the game to be slower or if they want the game to be faster. Sort of, and because the defense is still not super strong, but they made these very explicit changes that feel like, oh, we want people to do more easily. But it's a little weird, but I enjoyed my time with it just because like the damage was completely off the scales in a lot of cases. Like rounds would be over in like 20 seconds. The character that I played, Potemkin, is like a Zangief type.
Okay.
And his equivalent of the spinning pile driver could kill people with like, there was one character, Chip, who has the lowest health, who he could kill with 2 of those. So all you had to do was basically land 2 combos, basically, and the character was dead. And so he was just doing a ton of ridiculous damage. People were finding a lot of broken stuff that just was ridiculous. There's this really cool like wall bounce mechanic where if you do a combo in the corner, the character will very bounce off the walls, and you can extend your combo that way, and you can even break the wall, and that'll put you in an advantage. But they're not in the corner anymore, so that's kind of like an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Chip has this really cool thing now where he can run up the wall. And so he can do combos off of that where he'll get you in the wall and he's like pushing you upwards, comboing, like he's running sideways up the wall, and you like your character is here, he's running up the wall like that. And so he's pushing you upwards. So it's this really cool looking thing.
That's nice.
But all the characters have like fewer moves than they used to do. So it's this weird thing where they like Guilty Gear's always been like, hey, this is the really complex one. This is the one that's hard to get into. And they're doing a lot of moves that are like, hey, we've made it simpler, but I think they're kind of missing out on what is kind of appealing about the series, because it feels a little bit more like Street Fighter. And at some point, unless you really like the characters of Guilty Gear, you may as well just go play Street Fighter at some point.
That's interesting. I remember with Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, I was debating like, oh, do I get into this one? Is this a good starting place? And you were like, well, maybe, or you could just wait for Strive. Do you still feel like, I got a couple sticks if I want to dive into a fighting game, that this is going to be a good place to start here?
I would say, honestly, like, unless you really dig the design of Guilty Gear in the first place, I think Versus might work as a good primer for Strive, but I don't know how much time you want to.
Not that much.
I think Versus is a little, from what I've played of, I've only played the beta of Guilty Gear. I think Versus might be a little easier to get into. Whereas I'm curious to see where Strive falls on that, because I think, I don't know how much tutorialization they do, like that you can only play online, obviously. But in terms of like trying to learn how to play a fighting game, I think Versus might be a little easier because it's a little more grounded in Street Fighter, even more so than Strive. But I think it has better tools to naturally like, oh, this is how combos work. Whereas in Guilty Gear, you're going to be doing a lot of like, okay, why doesn't that work? Well, it's because of these kind of like obscure reasons. Versus very clearly lays out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So they don't have a release date yet for Strive?
No, they've said late 2020, and who knows what any video game release date looks like at this point in terms of whether or not that's actually going to happen. But I'm still pretty excited about it. I'm not super versed in the Guilty Gear series, so a lot of people are kind of bemoaning some of the things that it's missing compared to Exert, the previous game. But I can't miss those things because I'm not super versed in it.
Right.
And obviously I don't want to speak about like, hey, it's like there's nothing to this game. It's way too simple because they stripped out all of these things since you haven't spent too much time with it. But I still I still have fun with it. Just because Potemkin was fun to play and stuff. But I'm still looking forward to it. But I'm a little confused as to how this game is going to shake out long term.
Right. Jeff, have you ever listened? Oh, go
I was
ahead,
just gonna
Kyle.
say, if nothing else, its subtitle isn't a made-up word that no one can pronounce.
Yeah, that
So,
helps. That's
No,
cool.
but they
Good
have
shit.
the I and the V in Strive, Kyle. Did you miss that
Oh,
part?
no, I missed that.
Jeff, have you ever listened to the podcast Reply All?
No.
Well, they have a segment which is very fun called Yes, Yes, No. Kyle, do you want to explain it?
Yes, Yes, No is a segment from Reply All where they find a tweet that one of the hosts doesn't understand, and then the other two hosts attempt to explain that person to a point of understanding what the tweet meant.
And you pulled up some tweets from Surreal about Guilty Gear Strive that you're flummoxed by, and you want to see if Jeffem can understand what Surreal's explaining?
Yeah, so let's see. I got a couple here.
Perfect.
Not a huge fan of the gut scaling for life bars in Strive, and I do miss Gatling combos. It does feel like you combos are fairly easy to find for most characters. So I think you've explained what Gatling is a little bit, but what is gut scaling?
Now, this isn't for Surreal to explain. This is for Jeffem to try and take a guess at.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
what's gut scaling?
Gut scaling is the amount of power that, or health to power ratio that different characters have from one another.
Correct.
Okay.
You got it. Kyle, do you have more?
Yeah, I will never be good at Strive because I will mash Heat Knuckle every round.
Can't say that on this podcast.
This cereal? This you can confirm this is a tweet that you tweeted?
I did tweet that. There's a
Heat Knuckle.
there is an accompanying video with that tweet though.
That
I
is true.
think it's
That is
not
true.
safe for work.
Heat Knuckle is a combo that Panaccio does, which was Surreal's favorite character from the beta.
You got it. Way to go.
Sure.
Yes,
I
Kyle.
got more if we want more.
I think we might be good. But the point is, thank you for your expertise.
Hold on, well,
Surreal.
there is this one from March 9th, Serial, that says thanks to Soccer Mommy for the music. Is that related to Guilty Gear? or-
No, that's not a
No?
Guilty Gear
Okay.
related. No,
He lives a rich and
Okay.
varied life, Kyle.
I can see why. You know,
Yeah. Hey,
they,
Jeff.
they removed the soccer mommy from Exerd in Strive. Yeah.
Good update. Good call.
Hey, Jeff. I took one of your tabletop recommendations from a couple weeks ago on the show, and I got that Raptor game, that
Yeah?
1v1 asymmetrical game, and I really love it. Obviously, I'm a sucker for the theme because I like dinosaurs so much, but like,
Naturally.
you know, I think we talked about it before. It's like talking about the best 1v1 tabletop games to play during the pandemic and stuff. And I was like, well, there's chess, which I brought up as like probably the best, realistically, if you really want to zoom out. But it just feels so intense, and it stresses me out as much as I love chess. And then you come across something like Raptor, where it's lighthearted, the rounds are pretty quick, and just having like that asymmetrical nature makes it so fun. And I'm weirdly militant about it, where it's like, okay, whichever side you choose, you're sticking with. Every time we play this, I'm going to be the scientist, and then you're going to be the raptor, and we're just going to get used to this dynamic and like learning all of their moves. And you have that weird surprise element of like flipping the cards, trying to figure out who's doing what. It strategically has a lot going on, and I really love it.
Yeah, it does. And I tried not to get too in the weeds in that because it's listening to rules when you can't see the game in front of you is a super boring thing.
Yes.
But yeah, there are a number. I always kind of wince when you mention chess because I think obviously there's a ton of depth there in chess, but you're always kind of processing the same kind of decisions that you make in chess, which is basically what's the best move that I can make here in order to try and, corner my opponent into a checkmate.
Yeah.
And the great thing about modern board games now is there are so many different kinds of decisions that you have to make and different kinds of information that you have to take into account. And it's just kind of, and different variable win conditions and all those kind of things is why I like, modern board games. And Raptor is a really cool example of that.
And you had a couple other ones?
Plus you can say clever girl every time you eat one of the scientists.
It is very fun. Even like the art is like so clearly inspired by certain shots from Jurassic Park, but I mean, who's going to complain? And it is mandatory that if you're playing this, you have to listen to the Lost World soundtrack. There is no way around it, and it has to be Lost World specifically. But
true.
Jurassic Park 3 soundtrack's not going to cut it?
don't even bring that up, Kyle. That's offensive.
Sorry.
Jeffem, you've been playing more 1v1 tabletop board games, or just in general co-op stuff, or what is it?
Just in general stuff. I'll I'll try. I've seen some more people asking for 1v1 recommendations, so we'll have to do that on a future episode. But my wife and I ended up playing a bunch of card drafting games.
Drafting.
Yeah, so card drafting is a mechanic where basically you're going to get usually a hand of cards, and you look through them and you take one, and then everybody passes their cards to the next person, and you take another one. And so you're each time you're getting a different card.
Like Sushi Go?
Basically. Like Sushi Go, exactly. Okay. And that is, surprise, my first recommendation, and it is the one that everyone has probably already played. This is the game because people like this probably.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like variants though. So Sushi Go Party?
Yes. Yeah, and that was the one I wanted to mention. Sushi Go is just about the best kind of introductory game that you could probably get if you have people who don't play board games, but I think everyone has probably played card games at some point.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very easy transition where you're basically just collecting a bunch of very cute looking cartoony sushi pieces with little faces on them, and each card scores in a different way. And so as you're going through the rounds, you kind of have to pick a strategy based on what other people are doing and try and make the best of the cards that you're getting. And I would recommend Sushi Go Party, especially because Sushi Go is a very replayable game, but what's Sushi Go Party adds a bunch of different card types. And so each game you'll pick kind of a handful of different scoring opportunities, and there's a ton of extra ones in the box. So I've played probably, normal Sushi Go probably like 100 times.
Oh my God.
Different families and everything. It's because that's the one that everyone always says, oh, let's play Sushi Go, just because it grabs everyone. And at this point, I don't want to play it anymore, but having this option where you have different combinations of cards every time keeps it a little fresher every time.
Nice. And 1v1 works fine?
Yeah, so card drafting games in general, I think, play better with more people.
Yeah.
But 1v1 is still interesting. It's just interesting in a different way. And I think it's a little more strategic because the hand that you start with, you're going to get several cards out of there. And so it's not just, okay, well, I'm taking one and I'm passing it and I'm never going to see these cards again because they're not going to get back to me. You're thinking, well, which 2 or 3 of these do I hope I'm going to get back, and can that influence my decision-making process through that?
Right. That's cool. Do you have other recommendations?
Yeah. The second one is a much newer game. I think it came out this year, if not last year, but that is Point Salad from AEG. This is another, I don't know why they're all, based on food, but this one's a little different in that you have a few cards on the table that you're drafting from. And basically what's interesting about it is that each card has a vegetable on one side out of 6 different vegetables, but on the back side it has a point scoring method. And each card has its own, there's like 108 cards or something in the game. Each one has its own unique way that you can score. And so each turn you're either taking vegetables or you're taking a different point scoring card. And so you're building both the amount of vegetables that you have at the end of the game, but also how each one of those scores individually. Some may give you points if you have certain vegetables or certain combinations. Some may take away points if you get stuck with those kind of vegetables. And so each round you are building your own very unique way of where you're going to score.
Sounds interesting. At the same time, I mean, is it better than Sushi Go? I know you hate this type of boiling stuff down, but like if you're looking for one of these card drafting type games, is it just like go for Sushi Go, everybody?
Yeah, I would see these 3 recommendations. They're kind of a more, beginner, medium, little more advanced kind of scale. And so I think introductory, definitely Sushi Go. You can always play that. Like I said, I have gotten sick of Sushi Go at this point. I would much rather play this because I think the amount of variability that you're going to have, every game is definitely going to be completely different because you're always getting different scoring things. And so that's what's interesting to me.
Sure. So what's the advanced one?
I've only played this one 2-player at this point. It should be fun with more players, but we obviously can't do that now.
Yeah.
So finally, last one. This is the slightly more advanced one. It's called Fairy Tale. This is, I believe, one of the very first instances of card drafting.
Really?
And basically, this goes back to the kind of Sushi Go situation where you have a hand of cards that you start with, you take one, you pass the rest on. But it's a little more advanced in terms of how the scoring works, and there are some abilities that as you're laying the cards out in front of you, some cards will make you flip over cards so that they no longer score for you. Some will make you flip over an opponent's cards so those no longer score for them, and those. So there are just a few more interesting mechanics that they weave into it, and it's got a fantasy theme if you like that sort of thing.
What's the name of it again?
It's called Fairy Tale.
Fairy Tale. Interesting. Cool. Good board game recommendations of the week.
Yeah, so check those out depending on your, skill level or who you play with. I think they're all, but none of them are so difficult that, people are going to flip the table and be disgusted with you. So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hey, Suriel, because you're cool and you like Sam Barlow's games, do you want to hang out? And then Jeff and Kyle, do you guys want to clap out of here?
Yeah.
Sam Barlow, welcome to the MinnMax Show.
Hey, great to be here.
It's an honor to have you. Exciting news for you this week because Telling Lies is coming to consoles.
It is, and we didn't plan it this way, but it's the right time for a game like this to be out there.
Okay, so if you don't remember, you've also created Her Story, worked on Silent Hill Homecoming, a lot of amazing games in your past. Her Story, one of my favorites, definitely. Telling Lies is very exciting, and it's that weird thing where it's a game all about looking at people through their webcams, searching for keywords, trying to understand people's lives, basically from as effectively everybody in their little quarantine situation. I mean, this isn't planned, right? No matter what, quarantine or not, this thing was coming to consoles. It wasn't a matter of, the zeitgeist is very into webcams now. Let's go for it.
Correct. Yeah, no, we were we conceived of the game in, I want to say 2016, 17. And the world was so different then. Like there are some themes in the game to do with government and law enforcement that even back then in 2016, we were like, oh, this is an interesting thing that no one's really talking about. We can dig into this. And then, lots of stuff happened politically. And as we were making it, it was like, oh my gosh, some of this stuff is becoming close to what, people are going to think that this is a commentary on things that are happening right now, and it's not. So it's happened again. There was a point where we were wondering about being on console at launch, and that ended up being too much to do. So this was always planned. But no, it's amazing the number of calls I've had, especially from Hollywood types who over the years have had conversations about doing things with Her Story or whatever, and every single one of them, 2 weeks into quarantine of Zoom meetings, was like, oh my God, I need to reach out to that Sam Barlow guy again. This feels now.
Yeah. What are those conversations like then? Do they want to make the Netflix adaptation of Her Story, or what's the big pitch that you keep getting asked about?
Yeah, we've had various versions of that over the years. Some that almost happen, some that, it's that thing when you see oh, so-and-so has bought the movie rights to Metroid. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you're like, calm down.
Right.
Very good chance Metroid will not be in the cinemas next year. But it's, like I say, in this, I've got to see inside so many Hollywood execs' houses and seen how nice they are. It's good. It's a good opportunity to kind of pry into people's lives.
Yeah, so now I got to get into this Hollywood game. Come hell or high water, this is the future for Mr. Barlow.
They seem to have nice houses.
All right. Well, Suriel's house is not so bad. He's got a beautiful bedroom behind him there, Suriel.
Obviously, it's not set up like a Hollywood studio just yet, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. This is also maybe dumb, but during this era where everybody's so focused on webcams, is it generating new ideas in your mind? Do you think maybe I could crank out a game about some sort of quarantine mystery through Zoom? Is it does it feel like a fertile ground for you creatively?
I feel like there's a balance between, so I had 2 kids. So there's a balance between trying to get the current project done whilst homeschooling 2 kids, and that just being a lot. That's like fighting against any fertility. that's happening in my brain.
Yeah.
There was, I mean, the new project we're working on. One of the interesting aspects of that was like going into it, we were like, this will not be fan footage. This will not be webcams. Let's move away from that aesthetic. and we moved into an office in January, and Telling Lies was developed pretty much remotely. So there was an amount of Skyping people whilst we were making that. So this was like a clean break. It was like 2020. We're moving into this office. Everyone's real people talking to each other. And then a few weeks later, it was like, okay, guys, we need to start thinking about working from home. And so we're back. So it feels like as much as I try and get away from that world, I'm back in it. It's slightly tortuous. Like a good 6 months after we shot Telling Lies, whenever I did a Skype, I would feel so ugly because I'd been looking at actors with, a camera, a lighting crew, trying to make it look authentic, but at the same time, like lighting things nicely.
Yeah.
And the costumes and the sets, there was color schemas going on, like everything was nice. And then I'm there like, Skyping with, and I'm like, people like, can't see your face, you're backlit.
What's that process like of trying to find a way for the webcam stuff to not look completely like filmic or whatever, and making it look like this could feasibly be like something better than this conversation, for example, where everything looks it's just
I think
the webcams.
The biggest thing up front was the physicality of it was and because I went and I watched every fan footage webcam thing. And the biggest thing up front was like, this has to be real for the actors. Like, nothing is faker than an actor looking at a camera, pretending it's a webcam on a phone or a laptop, and being like, oh, and like eye lines being wrong. Like that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
So up front, we were like, we need to create a rig which is essentially the same as a laptop or a phone, can be handled by the actor, in which they can see who they're talking to. Like a big conceit in Telling Lies is that you're seeing conversations between two people, but part of the puzzle comes from the fact that you see one at a time. So I was like, if I think it's interesting to watch someone listening to what's being said on the other side, if it's interesting for me that I'm inferring, emotionally, like how are they reacting to what's being said? Can I infer something from that? That has to be as real as we can make it. Like, if it's going to be interesting to stare at Carrie Bichet's face as she's listening to Logan Marshall Green talking, let's not have them fake that. Because like the traditional way to do that would be you shoot the thing separately, you break it all up. And, even in a big Hollywood production, if you have two people in a conversation, oftentimes there will just be a stand-in there who's just reading the lines off camera. And, only one half the conversation is actually acting. But the edit, adds something to it. So yeah, up front, we're like, well, we need to be as well. Like I'd shot some stuff before that was on sets in a studio where, you would have like 2 walls or 3 walls, no ceiling. And if actors had handheld cameras, they were reasonably constrained because it was like, if you move the camera too far, you're going to catch that this is not real. So part of that process as well was we need to be pretty much shooting on location so that we have 360 degrees. So like all of the locations in Telling Lies were fully dressed all around so that the actors, we would, hit up a scene, and the most creative part of the process for the actors was like, how's this blocking going to work? And it's part of the gameplay. If one of the questions you have when you're playing Telling Lies is, who is this person speaking to? Well, if my wife is calling me, how do I pick up the phone? How do I position myself when I initiate the Skype?
Right.
Where am I sitting? Like, there's a whole different thing to I'm having a work Skype with my boss, and I'm going to set up in a different part of the room. So that kind of body language was a big part of it, like getting the actors comfortable with the rigs so that it felt real. And then aesthetically, that fed into some of the limitations. You couldn't have a lot of movie lights everywhere because you would see them. They couldn't be on camera. So that a lot of stuff was done practically. And then like we played a lot with the footage on the other end. Like, do we like glitch it up? Do we kind of, kill it in that way so it feels real? But like part of the project for me was I wanted to communicate the joy of just losing yourself in performance and footage. And so, on one level, this is a game where you have hours and hours of close-ups of actors doing acting, and these characters that you might want to hang out with. And the kind of mechanic of the game that lets you scrub through this footage on a level encourages you to like slow it down and just look at freeze frames of these characters and try and see what's happening on their faces. So even though it's this found footage aesthetic, it's not like Kubrick, I still wanted you to enjoy the visuals and enjoy these actor spaces and stuff. So we didn't want to like degrade the image too much. What we ended up doing, which was hilarious to me, was the DP did a bunch of experiments, and he found that if we just killed the resolution of it but kept the compression really high quality, it just gave you like a little edge. So I think the footage in the game is something like 360p, which is, that is like I'm on a shitty dial-up connection. I'm going to knock YouTube down to 360. But because it was nicely compressed, and because you're mainly dealing with like close-ups, it in the same way that, like, not to get too film nerd, but I remember David Lynch did this movie Inland Empire, which was the first movie he shot on essentially a consumer camcorder. Like, this wasn't a high-end film thing. It was digital, and it was low-res digital. But he, like, fell in love with how, I think to use his language, how dreamy the image was, because it was this kind of low-res, slightly blurry thing, and he really loved that. So, yeah, that was the thing we lent into, because there's a lot of suspension of disbelief in creating these things. So for me, it was like, if the performance and the writing and the story leans into these people are talking on their devices, and that is the whole vibe, and we believe that, and that's truthful in the performances. If we do these other things visually, we can still enjoy something that has been set dressed more than real life would be. It does, to look at like real webcam footage, me sat here, like, no one wants to look at this for 10 hours.
But you say that, but I feel like a weird side effect of the overall quarantine is there's some charm in seeing, Seth Meyers' attic, and just seeing like Jimmy Fallon try and piece something together. I feel like people are getting more and more comfortable. Obviously, the rise of YouTube, it kind of has brought this in a big way too, but people are more and more comfortable with just things looking real and kind of, duct taped together. If you look at Surreal's webcam, it keeps glitching out and making him looks like a freaky monster over there, So it is a weird thing where it's like, I think you totally could get away if you'd ever want to do another webcam found footage type game, because people are very used to this aesthetic at this point of just making it raw. I'm sure the actors would hate it, but forget them. Just make it look as honest as possible. No set decorations. Then you could crank out one of these games every 2 months. It'd be great.
That was essentially her story.
Yeah, I guess so.
Was I'm like, hey, the police interview camera does not have a director of photography tweaking the light levels. Like, this stuff looks ugly. And one of you're right in that, that was the inspiration for her story, was very much I was riffing on the ubiquity then of YouTube. The fact that news TV programs were more often running with cell phone footage, whereas when I grew up, news only happened if a crew got there. And it was it was professionals filming what was happening. And so her story came from that transition. And one of the things that was part of my little inspiration kit on that project was the casting footage of Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct.
Oh, interesting.
And this stuff's on YouTube. You should go check it out. Where I think Paul Verhoeven wanted Sharon Stone to lead that movie, but she wasn't a big enough name. So he filmed her doing 3 of the scenes, and it's reasonably flatly lit. She's not dressed up in character. It's shot in a hotel room, I guess. It's some kind of lo-fi video, and it's so intense. On a level, this very non-cinematic footage feels more real and intense. So when you have Sharon Stone going into that character and doing I think she films 3 scenes. One of them is the famous interrogation scene. but it's so much more intense, and it's got a really funky texture as well because Paul Verhoeven, the director, is reading Michael Douglas's lines off camera in his thick Dutch accent. So it's the weirdest, coolest thing. But I remember like watching that because with Her Story, I was like doing my research into police interviews in media, and so I was rewatching Basic Instinct, and I saw like these extras on the DVD. Watched that, and I was like, oh my god! And my brain kind of added that together with the YouTube stuff I was looking at, with the like the true crime stuff, which wasn't, I think, at that point truly a thing yet. I just got in at the same time, so I was like binging on the footage from the Jodi Arias case. If you ever followed that, they had like hours and hours of her interrogation footage, which at times was kind of surreal, at times intense. So I was pretty much, drinking the same water everyone else was and kind of reacting to that aesthetic that was out there.
Yeah. I'm curious what you learned about the game industry from releasing Telling Lies. You had Annapurna pushing it. How'd you feel about the game's reception, trying to get the message out there? Is it a tough thing to market?
There's so much going on. I think in 5 years' time, we'll be able to look back and figure out what 2019 in video games was. But I mean, the biggest difference to me was like coming from Her Story in 2015, which was my first digital game. So prior to that, I'd had publishers publishing my games, which is a weird thing because usually as like the lead designer, I wouldn't even be on the project when it finished, right? We would get to like beta and I would move on to another project and there'd be other people finishing it and usually a producer making the hard calls because if you're having to master a disc and have to run it through Nintendo and everyone, you're kind of months out having to say this is done, drop dead, has to be done if we're going to hit the shelves. So they would usually appreciate me not being involved in that process because they'd be like, yeah, there's this bug in this little story moment, but I think we're good to go. And I'd be there like, no, that's the whole, you can't, that bug is, you can't, that's the worst. So like Her Story as this digital thing that I self-published was great because it was the first time I had also nerve-wracking, being part of the whole thing and clicked the button to release and realizing like the scale of what digital looks like. Releasing a game and suddenly there are people in 200 countries downloading it simultaneously, the number of eyeballs. But 2015 there were less games coming out. Like the phone market was, I guess, hitting a level of maturity. Like everyone had phones, people were playing games on the App Store. There were some notable cool games on the App Store. It's like 2019, 100 times as many games coming out. The phone market has kind of continued on a certain trajectory. I think the most interesting thing to me was when Her Story came out, everyone was still on forums, right? So a game like that with questions and mysteries and stuff, like it would stay on the front page of all the forums because the thread would just keep getting longer as people played and shared their theories, and you kind of stuck around in the discussion for weeks by being that kind of thing. I think when Telling Lies came out, a ton of games came out. So I think we had like 2 weeks in the spotlight, essentially, where reviews were coming out and people were talking about it. But because everyone's discussing things on social media or Reddit or private little things, like Discord, you don't quite have that same thing that you used to have of like, oh, this is the thing we're talking about this month, and you kind of stick around on the top of the forum.
So were you kind of craving feedback? You're like searching around trying to find like, where are the discussions happening about Telling Lies?
Yeah, I think it's less the feedback because you're still seeing people play it and getting cool DMs and stuff, and you're seeing like the press. It's more like getting other people to talk to other people over a length of time. But I think it's true of all media. There are more shows. You don't have the thing you used to have of we're all watching the same show, because there's only like 10 shows that are worth watching right now.
Yeah.
And we have a week to talk about it. Like that general thing of discussing stuff has changed. So that was like definitely interesting to see, because it was all like when I made Her Story, it wasn't conceived of as being this discussion generator. And then when that happened, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the fact that you didn't quite have as much of that dimension on Telling Lies was truer to like how I play my own games, where it's like I'm going to go on this personal journey deep into this thing and dig around in it and come out of it several hours later and kind of blink for light.
Right.
But the reception for the thing was pretty good. There were points where I was terrified because it was, despite it being like my whatever number game this is that I put out, because Her Story was the game that had my name on it and blew up in a way. So many people, this was like the second game, and was they were anticipating a follow up to Her Story. So I was very conscious of like how much can you change, how much can I mess with the formula, and there's this very fun thing when you create something as say unique or different as Her Story. Like if I was making a military first-person shooter, I could tweak the reload mechanic, and everyone would be like, "Oh my gosh, this is really innovative, interesting, and they've really changed the genre
Sure.
in a way we couldn't imagine." But when you have something as fundamentally different to most games as Her Story, and you change half of the game, people are like, "Oh, it's the same game." This is like the same thing.
A webcam thing. Got it. Yeah.
But it's non-linear videos. We get it. It's the same thing.
Right. Right.
So like I knew, so I didn't know how will people react to this. Like in my head, Telling Lies is very different to Her Story, and they on the surface have very similar mechanics, but the feel of it, the scope of it, like just even the core minute-to-minute experience of it is very different. They have kind of different goals and kind of ambitions. So yeah, I was really interested / nervous to see like how did that play out. And I think on the whole, it worked. I think it's definitely like there are people that prefer Telling Lies, people that prefer Her Story. I think generally people get that this is this bigger, more ambitious thing. I think there's definitely someone that is attracted to the puzzly nature of Her Story, of which there is maybe less of in Telling Lies.
It's more just a complex story overall.
It's more of a sprawling, messy, deliberately messy kind of thing. But yeah, so they, it generally went down well. Critically did really well. Got some great, insightful reviews. So yeah, it's with that much kind of anticipation on my side, like it feels like not dodging a bullet, but it feels like cool. We got away with it.
Yeah.
we didn't fall flat on our faces. That's what we need to be doing. But yeah, gave me the confidence to be even more ambitious and silly with the next thing.
Nice. Yeah. What can you tell us about the next project here?
I think I can be very mysterious because I have like a bunch of people working with me now who have marketing plans and things. So I can't just throw stuff up on Twitter and they'll be like, "Oh, we weren't going to mention that for 6 months."
Right. So it's tying in with the publisher. This is a whole new project here?
The current plan is to self-publish, but like we're building an internal team here, and we got some funding, so it's going to be fun. But it's the cool thing about it is, which I think I can reveal, is that it's kind of in the horror supernatural space. So the good games that I made some very bad games when I started out in this industry, as everyone does. Like this is people don't realize, like when they see a sucky movie tie-in game or like they watch some awful B movie, it's like these things need to exist so that people can come in, learn their trade, and build up from that. So I worked on some very bad games, but then I got to work on Silent Hill, and to correct the earlier statement, I worked on Origins and Shattered Memories, not on Homecoming.
Oh, Homecoming. I'm sorry.
Which I think
of
was
course.
sandwiched in between the two.
Yes.
But at that time in the industry, it was incredible because I had like grown up interested in weird narrative things. I had like my first hit in inverted commas was this indie text game that I released in 1999 called Isle, which was this very experimental story thing that got something of a cult following. But then I went into the industry and I was working on stuff that was like Serious Sam and an extreme motocross game and the tie-in to the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movie.
Hell yeah.
Things like that. And so, I in my heart, I had this passion for like doing narrative things, and we got a chance to work on Silent Hill. And really, this would have been like in the early 2000s. There were very, very few game franchises that gave you permission to care about story. Like I remember so many times, especially so Shattered Memories of those projects was the one where I actually got to come in and have the idea and write the story, and we kind of created this thing, conceived fully as a thing. And so many aspects of that game were like somewhat innovative at the time, and producers would be like, we don't like this idea like this. Why can't you just do X, Y, Z? And then they'd kind of sigh and be like, I guess it is Silent Hill. So it'd be like, this story is about the conflicted grief of a teenage girl and gonna have these long, slow periods, which are just kind of sad. And you want to make people feel bad or maybe even bored at this point. And then you want to make them feel like uncomfortable. I guess it's Silent Hill.
We can't say no to anything.
Because otherwise, like, as a lead designer, whatever I did, at some point, a producer would say, but is it fun? They're like, games should be fun all the time. If this isn't fun right now, it shouldn't be in the game. And obviously, trying to tell stories, you're dealing with a broader palette than just fun. So getting to work on Silent Hill was a huge thing for me. And I love psychological horror. I love thrillers. I love weird, dark stuff. And, to some extent, Her Story and Telling Lies have those themes in them. And obviously, Her Story is slightly more gothic. Telling Lies goes to some very dark places. But with this new project, we are getting to play in the horror toolkit again, which is like really fun.
So do you see it kind of as a spiritual successor to Shattered Memories then?
No, I'm trying not to be spoilery now, because I had a good answer to that, which was spoilery. It's very much, it's like, we've been playing around with this non-linear video thing in Her Story and Telling Lies. Here is a different thing we can do with that seems challenging to pull off, but let's try. And just like having the ability to screw around more because it's horror is, I think, initially the fun thing with this project, because obviously, to some extent, Her Story and Telling Lies, there is some suspension of disbelief, but in theory, these are government pieces of software that have videos on them that have been recorded for a reason, and there is a functionality that makes sense. So going into a place where we can deal with some of the fun stuff you get in Silent Hill type setups, where we can kind of play with the fabric of reality.
So do you think the supernatural aspect helps you like explore different parts of like the FMV framework? Because it's like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people see like that there aren't a lot of differences between Telling Lies and Her Story, even though they seem very like they're very different in that frame. But do you think that like, okay, well, we have a horror setup, we don't have to be confined by the idea of a webcam when we're doing something with FMV?
Yeah, I mean, it's more like, what are we doing with the story, right? So Her Story, the trick there is, this is essentially, it's almost theater. The whole thing is a series of monologues from this actress who is telling a story, and that story exists outside of this interrogation room, so you get the whole breadth of her life. But it's this single kind of performance, mostly through dialogue. And then Telling Lies is, again, it's like very different because you're actually seeing into people's lives, and we have this story that spans 2 years. So you're seeing all these different people in different situations, and there's still a constraint. Like, you're seeing these people's lives through this very blinkered kind of view of a webcam that is turned on because there's a reason why it's being turned on at this point in time. But, you know, in both cases, the reality is fixed. You are, I try not to say too much, but like you know, in Telling Lies, everything behaves. So, you know, the time makes sense. People's actions line up. There is like a factual reality to it. And I think what I loved about Silent Hill and a lot of my favorite horror is blurring the lines between like a fixed reality and the psychological reality of the characters, and having those things bleed into each other, even to the point where, like, some of my favorite like horror books, it's never entirely clear what is real and what is fantasy, and you know, what is in someone's head and what is not. And some of those questions, I think, are interesting in the same way that like the process of playing her story and Telling Lies is to start out with a very vague picture of this world, and slowly you add detail to that world and build up a picture of it. So it's possible, if you play a lot of Telling Lies, to have a pretty concrete picture of who is doing what, where, why. And like, that is, like, I compare that to playing a Metroid game and building up a mental map of the world. Like, by the end of playing Super Metroid, you pretty much know this planet inside out, how it connects. You know the shortcuts between here and here. And what I love about the Metroid games is that gives you it makes it feel real to me. The fact that those worlds are lived in by me, that they've become not repetitive, I've become used to them. When I run through a room, I'm not necessarily absorbing the information. I'm replaying it in my head as I kind of rush to kind of speed run or, you know, cut corners, whatever. And so that, for me, is what's interesting about like Her Story and Telling Lies, is you become familiar with these characters in this world. And initially, it's just this big, disparate bunch of fragments. And then slowly, you start to understand more, and different bits of information will connect parts of the story. And that sense, for me, is what radically makes it different to watching a TV show or a movie, is this sense of like living in the story and your brain actually internalizing it and kind of putting the pieces together. And I think what's interesting about taking that to a horror place is like there is no solid ground. It's slightly more antagonistic towards the audience. So that's like a fun texture that we're going to be playing with.
I know it's a weird time to develop a game, but do you have any ballpark for when this thing might see the light of day?
I think it's very early 2022, which is like this. I hate that dates are sci-fi now. we were looking at like a schedule at the start of the year, and it was like, oh my god, all these milestones are happening, like in Blade Runner. Or, like it's, you can't with a serious face be like, well, let's hit Q1 2022 without feeling like you're a villain in a sci-fi movie. Or
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I don't know at what point. Maybe it will never. Maybe I'll never get used to it. I don't know. At what point do the dates I'm living in stop feeling like sci-fi dates? Maybe that's just a generational curse. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen. We'll be telling our grandkids, like, no, doesn't it feel like sci-fi though? And they'll be like, what are you talking about? It's just 2073. Just shut up, old man. So Telling Lies.
If we're alive in 2073, that's optimistic. I like that.
Yeah, well, I'm banking on it. I think things are feeling pretty positive around the world right now. Telling Lies on consoles, when's it shipping, and on what platforms?
It is out early next week. I'm going to say Tuesday, but I don't know what a day is even anymore. So
okay.
I feel like at that kind of, if you wake up and you feel like it's a Tuesday,
right?
Maybe it's out. And it's going to be on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. And it's been fun. We knew going into this that we wanted to make this one kind of work in a console setup. But something that I was surprised by was like when we released on mobile and PC, people would say to me like, "Oh, which should I play it on? Like, which is better? Which did you design it for?" And I'd be like, I honestly can't choose between the two, because when I play it on a phone, it's like, this is literally the phone that I use to FaceTime my wife.
Right.
So that feels super weird. And I've had people tell me I was playing it in public and people thought that I was like speaking to a cam girl in this cafe.
Perfect. Yeah, of course.
Weird. So that is like a super interesting thing, that you have this device that you are using in your life to intimately connect with your loved ones. And so that feels very interesting and resonant. But then when I play it on my laptop, the character in the game is sat in front of a computer. So I'm sat in front of a computer, and you know, your worlds merge. Like, I was testing this game in my apartment in New York, and I was sat with my laptop, and like, there's a soundscape in the game of a Brooklyn apartment with noises moving around and stuff to bed you in. And there were points where I was starting to lose, like, is that noise happening in my apartment or in the game? So, like, you know, playing on a computer gave you that sense of really merging with the protagonist. But then when we started putting it on console, I'm sat in my living room, certainly with my telly, it goes from being, you know, characters on your laptop or on your phone to almost being kind of life-size. And because the characters are all in these domestic settings, it suddenly becomes like a portal into someone else's living room or someone else's bedroom. And like all these scenes, a lot of these scenes are these very, you know, intimately paced moments where you're glimpsing into someone's, you know, most of these locations are living rooms, bedrooms, kitchens. Like, these are people's everyday lives and these very intimate conversations and settings. And that suddenly felt like, whoa, this is like a really interesting thing to be doing in my living room. And obviously with the console, you can kind of sit back and it's a little bit more relaxed. It's obviously very, very heavily supports couch co-op. Like, you can just sit and play it with a significant other, and it's like the design of the game is all that stuff you would normally do when you're watching a TV show together. Like, that's the game. Like, you're watching a murder mystery with your significant other, and you're sat there going like, oh, the husband did it. No, they didn't. No, they did. Look at the way look, you can tell. Just look at his eyes. Or, oh, look, the I don't know, what's a good murder weapon? Like, oh, look, the Splatoon amiibo in the corner. Like, why is that there? The amiibo should be in the games room. Like, oh, and you know, you're kind of digesting it in that way. So playing this on a couch, interestingly, kind of is the same thing. And you know, it's cool to be on a TV as we blur the boundaries between what is a TV show and what is a game.
Here's a dumb specific question for you. Typing on the consoles. Is there any way to bypass the UI from the consoles for entering text? Is there any way to keep it in game, or is that just a necessary kind of abrupt transition of like, here's the PS4 typing screen?
That is an annoying necessity. But that said, like, when we designed the game, like, there's a whole way of playing it where when you're watching a scene play out and someone says something, so let's come up with a non-spoilery invented example. You know, someone is like, hey, I got that banana you sent me. You can just stop and click, just quickly select an X on banana, and it spits you straight into the search for banana. So, and in actual fact, like this, what I really wanted to try and force people to do, and I didn't succeed with everybody. Like, I was really surprised with Her Story at how much FOMO people had. Like, you know, people filling up books of all their notes.
Yeah.
And wanted to chase down every clue and extract everything. And part of it was like, in that game, you had like a map of all the things you had seen. So you could see there are 2 clips I have not found. And so I remember being stunned that I think on Steam, at least, it's something like 25% of people 100%ed the game.
That's pretty good.
And like most games, that's not even a percentage for people finishing the game, right? Like people notoriously do not play games that they buy. But with Telling Lies, like the scope is much bigger, and I wanted, like I said earlier, like it's deliberately messy. Like I wanted it to feel like you're in amongst these people's lives, and that they were big, sprawling lives, and kind of jump between the bits and pieces and enjoy the kind of free association between things people were saying, and, you know, get this really interesting feeling of seeing a scene where you know, you could have theoretically a scene where two people meet for the first time, and it's like the meet cute and it's all happy and lovely, and then immediately contrasting that with the scene where they have a violent breakup, right? Like one of my favorite directors, Nicholas Roeg, like this was his technique. Like he would chop up and juxtapose different bits of time to create this thing that felt like human memory. So with Telling Lies, that for me was a big part of the experience. So we wanted this idea of, rather than like strip mining every clip for every piece of information and then kind of carefully choosing what to type in and search next, it was like, oh, if you see banana and that's interesting, like boom, you can jump into banana and leap, and now you're listening to something else, and then you see something there and then you jump into something else. So for me, I think like it's entirely possible to, and I pretty much play the game on console without ever typing.
Nice.
Just using that. And you have like this, again, like these are very, they seem like very small features on the surface, but conceptually they're bigger. But like you can bookmark, so you're watching something and someone says something interesting, you can just hit the bookmark button, and that's now stored in this list of bookmarks that you can kind of sort through and organize as like the equivalent of like having to write down something. And so, you know, if there's a thread you want to follow up, you can just bookmark that and then you come back and jump back into it. So it's like and especially now where, you know, possibly some people have lots of time to sit and immerse themselves in a fictional world. Like there is a very nice vibe here of playing on a console, sitting back, just kind of watching these things unfold, scrubbing through this footage, seeing something interesting, zoop, jump into that. And, you know, we tried to build enough features that you can just kind of follow your curiosity, bounce around things. And then when you hit a dead end or you want to try a different tack, you can just be like, oh, what were the different things I was searching against? What are these things I've bookmarked? And kind of jump into it that way.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, yeah, I think, the keyboard thing was something we were actively trying to get away from. It's there as a backup if you're like, oh, I really just want to try this word. I thought, I feel like that's a thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, hey, Sam, thanks so much. Looking forward to checking it out on console. So best of luck with the launch.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry. Oh, perfect. I'm sorry that Suriel is a missing number from Pokemon for a majority of the interview. It's just, you're kind of like a glitchy piece of storytelling throughout the interview.
Yeah,
so people can piece it together at home exactly what Sam is trying to convey about the nature of humanity through Suriel's glitched face.
Or we're just censoring something very obscene.
How dare you call Suriel obscene? Okay, you want to clap out there, Sam?
Okay, I'm going to clap myself out. This has been great. Thanks, guys.
Look out. Here comes trouble. Jeffem and Kyle back in the house. Let's see. Jeffem, do you know how this whole thing operates?
Spider Juice?
Spider Juice. And the important support of people on patreon.com/MinMax2Ns. If you support us at any tier, you get access to the Discord, which, again, is just a lovely place to find people who are playing the same games you're playing, find people to play with. There's community game nights. I think they were just playing Gears 5, but they rotate through different games and just get everybody together. And it's a nice bonding experience in these kind of separating times. So you can check that out. At the $100 tier, you can put whatever you want on the TV behind us on the set. You can plug a project that you're passionate about, anything like that. We should be okay with the images. But we should especially thank Brandon Sylvia here with Easygoing Gaming. Easygoing Gaming is extremely excited to be one of MinMax's monthly Patreon sponsors. I chose to advertise on this channel because it's a channel I watch and enjoy regularly.
Therefore, I felt this was the most organic form of advertising I could do for my new YouTube channel. Easygoing Gaming is a YouTube channel dedicated to covering all things relating to the world of video games, with videos ranging from news and reviews to lists and predictions. I hope to provide a little more of everything for everyone. I've been a lifelong gamer, and I'm excited to share that love and passion with a community as passionate as the MinnMax community. So please search Easygoing Gaming channel, and you can find it on YouTube there and check it out. Go there, check out one of his videos. He's got his review of Final Fantasy VII Remake. He's released a video that's the top 20 games of the decade. So check out Easygoing Gaming. You can find it by just searching a Google Easygoing Gaming channel and leave him a nice comment. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel. I'm sure Brandon would appreciate it. Also,
he probably liked Final Fantasy, right?
I'm scared to watch the review for spoilers, but I would imagine he did. Having played that game, I would imagine he loves it. I'd imagine it's like one of the highlights of his adult life if I had to just project how I'm feeling about it. So also, I Am 8-Bit is still a sponsor of MinnMax. They're just fantastic. Please thank them for supporting MinnMax by tweeting nice things at them or checking out their online store. You can use the promo code MinnMax to get 10% off anything. Their store is filled with unbelievable soundtracks. If you want a lot of very great video game soundtracks on vinyl, it's a great place to check it out. They have the Inside limited edition that Kyle's so fond of, and they want to let people know.
Spoiler, man. Talking about a spoiler avoiding. You got to buy that box blind from I Am 8-Bit.
I guess you're right. They're also selling the Watam vinyl soundtrack, which includes the innovative packaging, which includes the pop-out mayor hat, which is fantastic. If you want a vinyl soundtrack that has a hat on it, look no further than the Watam vinyl soundtrack on I Am 8-Bit store. It has music by Asuka, Brad, Sam, and Timmy, and album art by Keita Takahashi himself. It is a very cool presentation overall for a great soundtrack. So I Am 8-Bit, they're so generous. Every week they ship out an amazing prize. It could be random. It could be the Doki Doki Literature Club, perhaps. Vinyl soundtrack this week. But they ship out an amazing prize from their online store to the MinnMax community out of sheer generosity. You know, we're helping them. They're helping us. I'd love to keep this thing rolling. So please show them some support by going to their store and checking it out. And now we're going to get to our community questions, and our number one favorite community question we're going to honor with the question of the week, and then I Am 8-Bit will ship out something very nice to them. But we can't do these questions alone.
No.
Have been, but
it's
no,
not
terrible.
conceivable that we could
terribly.
ever do it on our own. So we need some real experts from the podcasting world and the video game world. So look at this. Hey, my God in heaven. We have so many people here. I'm sorry for the layout on the screen. We have Kirk Hamilton.
Hello.
We have Maddie Myers.
Hey.
And we have Jason Schreier.
Hello.
The new team, I guess, is it fair to call you a new team behind the Triple Click podcast?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's a new podcast, same team as has been a team on other things, but,
Yeah.
but new podcast, so sure.
New in spirit.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's like a spiritual successor to Kotaku Split Screen.
That is
Right.
accurate, sure.
Okay.
With
Legally.
an entirely too sexy theme song, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
all right.
Very
That's
good.
all Kirk and the saxophone.
Way to go,
Cheers.
dude. I got to compliment you guys out of the gate for the name. I saw that, and it's rare to see a name for something in Games Press or really anything these days where you stop and think, oh, they nailed it. That's really good. Triple Click, simple,
Nice.
to the point.
Thank you.
Was it a tough process to come up with that one?
We was
Yeah.
we
Took
went
a
through a
minute.
lot of names. Yeah,
Yeah.
we went through a lot
We
of
did.
names.
We definitely talked it through.
Mhm.
We wound up deciding. We decided between two, and one became Triple Click, and then one became our LLC name. So we were economical. We used everything that we came up with.
Perfect.
We did.
I'm still obsessed with names ever since like starting MinnMax and stuff, and it's just stupid huge list of names. But still, every time I'll think of something and write it down. Like I think we had a stream earlier on. We were playing some game, and somebody said, "Eat the item." I was like, you know what? EatTheItem.com is a
That is
very
good.
good video gamey thing that is wide
The
open.
item.
And
yeah,
another one
that's a segment title. Right
yeah.
there for you.
Ooh, yeah, good one. Or I'm still obsessed
We,
with.
There is a song by Five Iron Frenzy called "The Wizard Needs Food Badly," which is a lot like "Eat the Item."
It's pretty close.
Yeah,
All right.
It's not a bad name
It's
for
connected.
sure.
in some way.
Still pretty good.
So starting a new podcast. What's the process? What's the format? How much did you guys spitball? What did you land on? What are you going for here?
Kirk.
Oh man. Okay, do I get an answer? So so we've been doing Kotaku Split Screen. Well, Jason and I have been doing Kotaku Split Screen for like 5 years. Maddie joined the show, I guess, full time in 2008. 2018. Is that right? No, 2019. At the end of 2018.
Something like
of
2 years
2019,
ago. What is
Okay.
time? Who
So-
knows?
We started the podcast, Jason and I, with no idea what we were doing. And, you know, we hadn't podcasted before, so there was a lot of just figuring out as we went. Those early episodes are just us kind of talking, and there's not a lot of structure. And then we
they're
kind of
great.
added structure. Right, they're great. They're fun. I mean, they are fun episodes, but we got better at it as we went. And by the time Maddie had joined, it was like, okay, we're going to actually have a structure. We're going to do a show with like a middle section and a first section and an off-topic section. And so it's kind of a continuation of that process, I guess, making a new show.
But
It's
even more
nice. It's nice to have a fresh start, I guess, because it lets us say, hey, this is a new thing to new people, where I think Split Screen was much, much better as a show in the last year, 6 months of the show than it was in the first 6 months. But it's hard when people have heard the first 6 months and are like, okay, whatever, this is like another video game podcast, or it's this thing, when it became something else over those 5 years.
Yeah,
So
and I think a
guess,
lot
yeah.
of people didn't realize that I had joined and that it was a new
Right.
kind of new show once I joined, and that was sort of hard to message too. Like I'd be like,
Right.
"Oh, I also have a video game podcast now," and people didn't know that. So this is a much more concrete starting of a show with the three of
Yes.
us specifically, and we got the chance to rethink the format, which mostly
Mhm.
Jason came up with the new format. So
That's true.
Yeah, well, so a couple of things. So first of all, one of the biggest differences between now and in the past is that our company has never really known how to do podcasts, unlike a lot of companies which are good at like having audio departments, like Vox Media or whatever else. Our company just never nailed that. So we were always doing our own thing and kind of like on the side from everybody else with no real institutional support. Part of that was because Kirk can edit and produce the show on his own, so we didn't need help. But also we never got like promotion or publicity or help from anybody in any real way, which we are now able to get because Triple Click is part of the Maximum Fun Network, which is this incredible network of shows.
Yeah, they're very cool, turns out.
Yeah.
Like Don Hodgman. Yeah, tons of Maddie's a huge fan. She got us in touch with those people, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
been awesome working with them. They're fantastic. I can't say enough good things about them. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And then so the other thing is like I think one of the cool things about Triple Click, and one of the things we're trying to do pretty deliberately as we launch the show and move forward with it, is we're not trying to be like a Giant Bombcast or a Min Max or an Easy Allies. We're not going to be the show where we just are talking about every single piece of game news, every single game that we've ever played for 4 hours a week or anything like that. I think we're more of a complement to what a show like this does, and a channel with what a channel like this does, in that we are going to be hopefully around 45 minutes a week. We are going to be talking about pretty focused topics, ideally topics that you'll be able to like listen through the whole backlog and still find interesting over time. But a lot of what we're trying to do is just kind of talk about games from an approachable way, even if you're not the biggest, most hardcore gamer in the world. And I
So
think
what we're
if
saying
you
is we're not your direct competition.
Oh, thank God. Oh,
can
thank
listen
God.
Enough room in the world for all of us.
Okay. Fantastic.
I think if you're a hardcore gamer, you'll enjoy the show. But
Sure.
I
but
think
if you're not, you might too.
Well,
exactly,
that's
If you're
interesting.
not, you might too.
I don't-
One of the things I've loved about Split Screen over the past couple of years, especially, is just hearing from listeners who are like, "Hey, I kind of stopped playing video games, but listening to you guys every week makes me feel like I can just like get in touch with that because you talk about these games in this approachable way that doesn't require like checking Resetera every day, reading Kotaku every day, et cetera, et cetera." So that's something that we're really proud of and like trying to move forward with this show. So that's
Yeah.
been cool too.
Now, I don't want to tell everybody what their brand is or anything, but when I think of this group, you're a very smart group. You know the industry well.
Argument.
Don't you think that people are coming to this group for some really specific industry insider stuff, but you're seeing the podcast, you're trying to cast a much broader net than that?
Well, it can be both. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that for example, our pilot episode. So the way that the show is going to work is it's split into two segments. And segment one is like our main topic of the episode, and segment two is the three of us each. It's called One More Thing, and each of us is going to talk about something that we played or liked or just something we want to bring up that week. In segment one of the things we're going to be doing in the first episode, for example, we're talking about video game language and visual language and the way that a beginner might pick up a video game and have no idea what certain things are. Like you would have no idea. We were just talking about eat the item, right? Like you would have no idea what it even means to eat an item. Why did this turkey leg in Castlevania give me health, right? So we talked a bunch about that, and I think that's a conversation that anyone can find interesting. And I think as we move forward, just bringing up sorts of like in-depth topics like that, or anything, news analysis, whatever else, playing a video game, it allows us to kind of provide that in-depth insight without necessarily alienating people who are more of just like the I play one game a month type listener.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So in other words, we want to have our cake and eat it too.
All right.
I think it's also true that even the supposed casual listener is actually quite interested in those in-depth industry takes that, like Jason, for example, is so famous for doing, because they can understand that gaming is a business and appreciate that lens, because everybody understands how other businesses work. Why not also care about labor issues in games and hear about how games are made the same as any other art form? And that's always been an ethos we had at Split Screen, and it's going to continue with Triple Click because that's the ethos that three of us have anyway.
That's awesome.
That's true.
Well, you're all here. This giant group is here to answer a bunch of questions from the MinnMax community that supported us, or they left on the patreon.com/MinnMaxTwins. So Ricky Winterborn says, I did not expect my two favorite podcasts to collaborate, but shout out to Kirk for the dope music on Triple Click. That trailer was epic.
Cal, did you write this question?
That's actually, I'm writing that right now.
Perfect. And then Ricky wants to know, is Maddie still working for Kotaku, or how does this whole thing work?
That's right. I still work there.
But Split Screen is stopping.
It is on hiatus for now.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you about that.
Love it. Alex Brinegar says, question for Jason. I imagine it must have been a difficult decision to leave Kotaku. When did you decide / know that you're going to leave? Was there anything you specifically wanted to do before leaving?
Okay, so question one, when did I decide / know that I was going to leave? I mean, leaving is always like leaving any sort of job. There are always a lot of factors involved, but I would say it's pretty easy to know exactly when I decided, because that is the day that Jim Spanfeller killed Deadspin. And I won't get into the whole story. You can all look it up. But it was, I believe, October 29th, 2019 was the day that I decided. Basically, the day that Deadspin was destroyed was the day I decided I could no longer be at Geo Media. And then I just decided to start reaching out to people and talking to people and figuring out what I was going to do next. And yeah, I mean, there were definitely some stories that I really wanted to do before I left. One of them was just a follow-up on how Rockstar has been doing since the launch of Red Dead 2, which I think was my final story, or one of my final couple of stories. And then, yeah, just a bunch of the things that I've published over the past few months have been just like me knowing, okay, I'm going to be out of here soon. This is my checklist of things I'm going to hit. Sadly,
I think reviewing Final Fantasy VII Remake was actually
that was
right.
Yeah. That was part of my timeline, actually. Yeah, and when it was delayed, I think I had to delay. Delayed.
That was how much he needed dibs on Final Fantasy VII.
I get it, man.
It worked out. It worked out well. I think we were talking about we were gonna do one last GDC as Kotaku.
That didn't quite happen.
You can't always get what you want. By the way, Jason, this is so specific, but we're doing what we call the Deepest Dive, which is like a big community game club on Final Fantasy VII Remake right now.
Nice.
And we're just halfway through the game, so please, even something you wouldn't even consider a spoiler, just please don't say it, because we're on super sensitive mode, like muting it on all channels, all that type of thing. So I appreciate your discretion in this situation.
Don't spill the beans. No spilling the beans.
Thank you.
By the way, Jason, I like that move of posting your thing on Kotaku saying, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to work on my book. And then like the next day posting a big piece on New York Times.
Well, that's funny. I had written that a couple of weeks ago. So the timing worked out. Yes, the timing was funny. I was actually a little worried that because that was just like a freelance piece. I did a couple of pieces for the Times just because I had the opportunity to. I was worried that one of those was going to go up between when I announced I was leaving Kotaku and before I announced my new job, which is I'm going to Bloomberg News. And then I was worried I was going to get 1,000 questions being like, oh my God, you're going to the New York Times. But fortunately, I was able to dodge that.
Yeah. So Bloomberg News, what was that process like?
Well, so I started talking to them a few months ago. It was a lot of these job situations are like long processes. I remember because I was talking to them back when people could actually meet other people in person. So I went down to their office, which is wild. And I talked to a couple of the editors on their tech team, and wound up really impressed. I mean, they had been wanting to hire a games reporter, And I think what they told me essentially was that they are very interested in doing the sorts of stories that I've been doing at Kotaku for the past couple of years. Stories about labor issues and systemic problems in the video game industry and crunch and a lot of the things that I've been talking about behind the scenes, game development stories. And they essentially said it was like, I think I reached out to someone and then they got back to me, and there's back and forth conversation. They're like, oh my God, like we were going to reach out to you. And I was like, oh, this works out nicely. And so we started talking, and it wound up, I was very impressed. I was a little skeptical about a few things. Like one is that I just having worked at Gawker for so many years and the company that Gawker became, I'm very used to like the type of kind of grassroots environment where like Kotaku was like no more than 15, 16 people ever. And if I had a question, like the CEO, Nick Denton, is like sitting across from me over there, or like the HR person is like one guy with a notepad. And there was a lot of like stuff, a lot of flexibility and a lot of kind of autonomy that you could have at that atmosphere. So I was a little skeptical about going into like a super corporate, like thousands and thousands of people environment, but I'm excited. I'm excited about that and excited about the new stuff. A lot of the decision for me came down to it being just like a stable newsroom full of just like super talented journalists who I felt like I could learn a lot from, and also just being a new challenge. I really wanted to do something new that wasn't just like going to another game site and doing sorts of similar work to what I'm doing now. So that was super appealing to me. A lot of things were really appealing to me about the job, and I'm stoked to get started.
Yeah. Now we're partial to it, but did you ever consider just going out on your own, starting a Patreon, like, hey, long form investigative pieces, pay up people? I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but it seems like that could have been a solid route for you. That is an avenue that I don't think many people are doing.
Well, so the three of us definitely talked about it for our podcast, but ultimately decided Max Fun was a better option for a lot of reasons, and we're very stoked about that. I never really thought about it seriously for writing for a lot of reasons. I mean, for one, it's with video shows and podcasts and anything that's like the world of personality content, you can stick to a schedule. With reports, with stories, with investigations, you can't stick to a schedule because like a story could fall apart for all sorts of reasons, or a story could need more time. And just to the idea of promising like I'm going to do this thing once a month is just not something that could work for a variety of reasons. The other thing is, I don't know if you know this, but the US doesn't give you health insurance.
Oh crap.
That's a thing. I guess you need a job to have health insurance. Having just had a baby girl a few months ago, that was a very big factor. I think that yeah, I mean, if I didn't have a kid when the Deadspin stuff went down, I might have been tempted to just like quit then and there. But just knowing that I have to pay for health insurance, like knowing that my daughter has to be on this health insurance and going to pediatrician appointments, that was a big thing also. And then the other thing is the lawyers. Like people don't think about this a lot, but like when you do an investigative reported piece on anything, lawyers might come after you, and there's no lawyers on Patreon. You don't get legal support on Patreon, and all this other stuff that's just like part of journalistic institutional support is just really important. And plus, like having editors and journalists around you to learn from, like that to me is one of the biggest draws of a place like Bloomberg. Is like I'm going to this newsroom full of people who just have been doing this for years and writing books and have all this journalistic experience. And I'm super excited to just like go in and like when we can go into things again, go in and absorb everything. I want to go in and just like ask people a million questions about things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kirk, is the plan overall to build TripleClick and the Mysterious LLC up as like your new main thing, or what does your future look like?
Well, no, I think it'll be a side thing. So okay. I also do a music podcast called Strong Songs, and I've been doing a lot of music. That's still my main focus, is between that and like writing stuff and working on music. This is probably about the same size as Split Screen was for me, at least in my sort of wheelhouse, which is, a couple day or two of a week of work. But yeah, we want to build it up and we want it to be a really cool thing. I don't think we're imagining starting a whole games media empire or anything. Like, I think we're a little more, I don't want to speak for Maddie and Jason, but it's more like, let's make a show that we like making every week, that people like listening to. That's a sustainable thing that we can do that fits in with, Jason has his own career, Maddie has her own career, I have my own thing that I'm doing, and that we can just do and have fun with.
Just the thing that you do.
Well, it's like a little less, like it's not one job, right? Like I do a lot of.
Don't sell yourself short, man.
It's a career.
It's not a capital C career.
I have a
saxophone is a career too.
It is. So at least for a few more
Very
years.
demanding.
So yeah, I think it's a little more of that scope, and we want to keep it sustainable and kind of focus on that.
Yeah, I would say it's also true that we're really happy we own our own show and that we get a lot of creative control over the show without saying anything about Geo Media. I'll say that I'm very happy that Triple Click is ours and it belongs to the three of us. And Max Fun has been super supportive of that. That's what their network is all about, and that's a big reason why we did it this way.
Yeah, congratulations. It really feels fantastic as somebody and as a group that kind of made that leap recently. It's so bizarre. I didn't expect it.
You guys as well.
Oh, thanks so much.
Some of us were pushed off a ledge. We all landed. So
some of us jumped for fun. Yeah, but it is weird, like how much more. Yeah, it's weird, like how much more sensitive you are, both to like the positives and negatives. Like every time I see somebody leave the Patreon, it's like, oh, I didn't expect this to actually change my mood throughout the day. And I think like when it's your own thing, it's bizarre how much more of a roller coaster it is than I expected.
Oh God, that seems, I would be unhealthily obsessing also.
You can, so Strong Songs has a Patreon, and you can obsess over it or not. I find like I guess it depends on your personality, but it's nice not having, now that Triple Click is its own thing that we control. Strong Songs is also completely independent. Those are my two primary income sources. It is pretty cool being totally in control of all the things that I make, like for the first time. That is a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, we have a lot more questions we should probably dive into here. Mark Simon is a good industry talker for everybody. Do you think potential next-gen console delays would even matter? There's such a rich set of games for current gen. I put together a lockdown backlog spreadsheet. Lockdown backlog spreadsheet is a good phrase. And there's 60 games on it, just for PlayStation 4. I play games every day, too. There's no rush for next gen, right? So, broad question, do you think it even matters?
It depends on who you're talking
bottom
about.
Lines to
right.
matters a lot.
Right. Yeah, there's a consumer perspective, and then there's the other side, right?
I can think of one company that it's going to matter a whole lot to. A certain retailer that
well, that's
is
certainly
dying for the next for it to hit before holiday season.
Yeah, but speaking as somebody who also has a huge backlog, I gotta admit it's kind of nice to think to myself, maybe I'll finally play Chrono Trigger, which I've never played before. Like all those big gaming canon games, and I'm like, maybe someday. Now is the time for that.
This is someday. We are living in someday.
We've hit it, everybody.
The day has happened. I have a whole thing where during like downtime, the like 2 months of downtime in the sort of late winter and during the summer, I try to play one game at a time and finish them. I've been doing this since I left Kotaku because I don't have that obligation anymore of like, well, I'm an editor at Kotaku. I got to be playing all the things to like see what I want to write about. And that's a really great way to play games, I find, especially single player games, like games that have endings and stories. And that, I miss that when it starts getting busy. And that started happening this year when it's like, oh, Animal Crossing and Doom are coming out at the same time. Half-Life Alyx is coming out. I'm going to have a bunch of different games I have to play. And then suddenly like, bam, it just stopped. And I can actually go back to doing that. And just from my perspective, that is cool. Though, of course, right, it definitely matters for anyone who's like planning out their company's like financial future based on all of these things they've been planning for years. Like that certainly matters in probably a catastrophic way for a lot of those companies.
So counterpoint, I don't think it would matter even if they did come out, because people always forget how bad console launches are. There's no reason ever to buy a video game console on launch, because all of the third-party games are always cross-gen, and of the first-party games, there's maybe going to be like one that you're interested in.
I mean, come on, Killzone Shadowfall, that was a pretty fun game.
And Microsoft,
it wasn't even that good.
On PC anyway, so that really doesn't matter. Like, there's no, I doubt there will be much reason to buy either a PS5 or Xbox Series X like this fall, even if they do come out on time, unless you're like hardcore early adopter, have to have everything, in which case maybe think about why you feel like you have to have everything.
Yeah, but it's a weird thing too if it's just going to be like an empty shell of a launch where they do somehow miraculously manage to push these things out the door and it's like, yeah, but all the software is delayed. I mean, I think that's a likely scenario, right?
It's
Plus
also
all the
especially
supply chain issues as well. Like, how do you even
Yeah.
really get those new consoles out the door, even if the factories can make them? I don't see how that is going to work. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
also
how do you
wonder how
sell 'em,
much the
and then do
expectation-
people have money to buy them? That's the other question, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the coronavirus stuff is going to be like pushing gaming as a priority. You know, right now it's really at the forefront because like, hey, everybody needs to like pass time. But once the idea of like, hey, you have to pay $500 for a new video game thing that feels more like a luxury than something you gotta have, I think people are going to second guess that. And then also with the expectation that, hey, you have pro versions of consoles hitting at some point, I wonder how many people feel burnt about having bought like a base PS4 and might just wait until like, well, by the time the pro version of the PS5 comes out, there'll be games that I actually want to play, so I can just hold off until then.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Robbie Flanagan writes in and says, "Greetings, Corona loathing cohorts." It's a long story. We can't explain it. Triple click. I'm sorry. With the tremendous successes
That
of
kind
Final
of
Fantasy,
explains itself.
well, the cohorts thing. Never mind. With the tremendous successes of Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil 2, and the seemingly decent response to RE3 remake, do you see the remake trend continuing for the foreseeable future? Do you think it would take a catastrophic flop of a remake to finally kill the trend? And finally, what's your pie in the sky dream make? Okay, so that we'll save that for the second chunk. Could anything kill the trend? Is it possible for these big budget remakes to flop in a big way?
Oh boy. I mean, a terrible one, I guess, but I don't see that killing the trend just because the trend it kind of makes the argument for itself. It's like a game that people already know. So there's an established group of people who probably want it. People will be curious about it. No, it doesn't seem to me like
It's
even
also
a
a
failure.
trend in other industries right now too.
Right,
like So much
exactly.
other media is like either revisiting or remaking stuff from 20, 30 years ago. So games doing it too makes a lot of sense.
It's but it's way better in games because in games you can take a game that hasn't aged well and you can
Yeah.
make it into this like
Fix
Resident
it.
Man, I thought A Star Is Born was pretty good. I mean,
It's fair.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
where
but
is the
even-
game adaptation of it?
good question.
It's not. Imagine like there's no precedent for like Final Fantasy VII completely changing everything from the gameplay to like the script to like there's no remake in Hollywood that like changes the genre of. I guess you could say like, are there like a musical version of an old movie?
I'm
or
sure
something?
people could come up with one,
There's
but
the gritty remake of Oklahoma. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
sure.
true.
Yeah, in
Like,
the new
I guess-
Watchmen.
I guess
Yeah.
Clueless is kind of like an interpretation of that Shakespeare.
Right?
play.
Well, yeah, and Maddie, you said Watchmen. Actually, I think Watchmen's a great example.
It
like
is,
that
it
is
is.
actually a Final Fantasy VII
Yeah, that's a good
level. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
sequel. It's not
No,
really
but
a
that's not
remake
a
of Watchmen.
Yeah, no, that's not.
But
a
it
remake.
kind of is. I don't know.
Revisitation of the themes of the original
Right.
Watchmen book that iterates on them in a cool
Right.
way.
But it's like very much a continuation of. the
Nope, it's
story.
exactly like
I do feel
this. I don't think any. Yeah, I'm with Kirk. I don't think anything will kill the remake trend because remakes are pretty cool and can be really good. I mean, you look at the Resident Evil games. Like, I would love to see a lot of older games, especially because the video game industry has just no respect for preservation of old
Mhm.
games. So if you're not gonna just like find ways to actually maintain your library of classics, then I guess the next best thing is to remake them for modern audiences and sell them again.
Yeah, but I think there's this idea of, oh, they did Final Fantasy VII. Now Square can remake 8, and let's go nuts. Let's do 6. Let's do all these. I don't think people are appreciating the budget Final Fantasy VII remake had and like how much effort that thing was.
scope.
Yes, it is.
Right. When Final Fantasy VII Remake ends in like the year 2035, people will finally be
Right.
like, oh, I see now why they didn't remake 8.
Yeah, it's not easy just to be like, you get a remake, you get a remake. It's like, no, this
Right.
they had to move mountains of solid
Yeah.
gold just to make this thing happen, you know? But Pie in the Sky Dream Make, what would y'all like to be remade? What jumps to the top of your minds?
I have one.
Sweet Good and 2.
Okay,
that's a
with the
good
full,
one. Okay.
like the production values of a 7 remake?
No, really, I just want that game remade with like a new script. It can have the same graphics.
Oh,
I feel
interesting.
that. That's kind of my answer too. It's more cheating because I really just want them to reboot Metroid as a series because Samus's canon has gotten so crowded and weird over the past several games. And I don't think that's going to happen because Metroid Prime 4 is happening instead. But for a while, I was pretty sure they were going to reboot and remake all the Metroid games. I could
That
still
would
be
be
right about
cool.
that in like 10 years. Who knows?
Don't get Maddie started on Other M.
Has Nintendo
I love it. No, I don't.
has Nintendo ever done a narrative reboot? They've never had to before, right?
Right.
Because
Well,
now
they kind of have because Samus Returns came out, and that is a remake of Metroid 2 for the Game Boy.
I
And
guess
I thought
so.
it was quite good. It sort of flew under the radar because it came out on 3DS around the same time that the Switch came out, and nobody was playing their 3DSs anymore except for me to play that game. But it's not like they haven't remade a Metroid game and, in my opinion, improved it.
Yeah.
So could be done.
Could be done.
Could be done. Okay, I have one too. It's not ever probably going to happen, but I think it would be pretty cool to play a fully done up remake of Knights of the Old Republic.
I like that.
I kind of think that a lot of people haven't played that game, or like there are modern people who are into Star Wars who look at that game and just think, oh, it just is too old fashioned. It looks too old, or it doesn't run on the system I want to play it on. And playing a version of that game that was completely redone, pretty cool.
It'd be amazing.
What makes you think that's not ever going to happen?
Well, there would be like, because they would release like a remaster with like slightly better
Star
textures.
Wars is going so well that like they won't ever need to go mine all material.
That's true. I feel like an actual remake of the game that like builds everything from the ground up would be cooler than a remaster with like slightly higher res graphics. But I feel like the latter is more likely, probably.
I also think if they're going to revisit Knights of the Republic as like a single player RPG, it's just going to be a new entry that's going to like incorporate the new canon. Like like you said, they're done with that sort of story.
Right.
Well, the new entry is the MMO. The MMO has the story of like
that's true.
10 of those games all
Right,
stuffed in one.
I do kind of want to do a deepest dive game club on the Old Republic MMO. Like everybody chooses a different path. Because I mean, I played through one of them and one of the storylines. And I thought it was really impressive, actually. Like I really enjoyed it, but I'm sure it's not
a lot of
aged
these MMOs between that and Final Fantasy 14 and Elder Scrolls Online. It's all of these games nobody will ever have time for, but they all have these amazing storylines that have just been iterated over years and years of development. And just
people have time now, Jason.
Amazing.
People have time
True.
now.
Now you have time, but you don't have money for all those monthly subscriptions.
It is the beautiful someday.
Kirk, if I had to make a prediction, it would be that your dream of a remake comes true.
All right, you tease. Because you tweeted a while ago, Jason, where you're like, because there's so many rumors about a remake of Knights of the Old Republic, and then you tweeted something like, if it is happening, it's not happening at EA, which also set the internet on fire trying to figure out what the hell you're talking about.
EA, I guess I don't know exactly when their deal with Lucasfilm expires. They signed it in 2013. There were rumors that it was a 10-year deal, which would make it 2023. I don't know if that's actually true, if it's 10 years. I'm not 100% sure how long it is. But with Knights of the Old Republic project, I mean, I know it was at BioWare Austin, they would talk about it a lot and people really wanted to do it, but it was, as often happens, it was like one of those dangling carrots that like, okay, we just got to do this thing, and then we're gonna get to pitch a KOTOR, then we're gonna make a KOTOR.
I'm trying to remember the thing you talk about when you say do it. Do you mean remake Knights of the Old Republic, or do you mean make a new entry like Kyle was talking about?
I think I have to be a little careful here.
Uh-oh.
I think
all right. Don't say anything you can't say.
If there were to be a KOTOR remake, I think it would have to get through a lot of green lights. So it isn't the type of thing that you should get super excited about.
I was getting excited, so I'm bummed.
Well done.
But it's the type of thing
really getting worked up over here.
People definitely want it to happen.
Naturally.
I was thinking like
one of them's right here.
Yeah.
People in a position to make it happen want it to happen.
Okay.
I was thinking about Dream Remake, and it's maybe a weird choice, but for a while I wanted Bethesda to make it, and now I don't want that so much anymore, but I want just a good high-budget Oregon Trail. Wouldn't that be great?
That's great. Oh, I love that.
Good.
Just even.
Did you ever play Oregon Trail 2, the sequel that has all this like tons of items that you can
This
get?
time it's personal.
yeah, it's really
I never
personal.
have.
No, the real one. It's like 3D graphics that has all these elaborate items you can pick up, and there are a lot of it's weird. It's clunky.
I played Amazon Trail, which is like the magical realism, you're hunting the Incan treasure version of a sequel to Oregon Trail. That game also exists.
I want to play that at some point
Child
too.
me thought it was cool.
Wouldn't it be sweet to have like, a Hello Games or somebody else that you can just like procedurally generate the West, and it really just takes you like years or however long just to journey across this thing? I think it'd be so fun. How long did it take him to go across the Oregon Trail? Was it years?
I don't know. I would imagine it was a long time, at least a year.
Thank you, historian.
That's what I got.
That's what I got. I can't see it taking a year. Well, because if you think about it, so driving across the country would probably take you, if you did it straight, would probably take you like 2 days. So a fraction of that speed, right? Should we do the math on hand? Right, like
Let's
6
ask
miles
Google
per hour.
how long it takes to
How many
walk.
hang
miles
on.
per hour does a cattle take?
We
to
got it
walk?
right here.
There's gotta be like a Red Dead 2 mod where you just start at the
You
most
just walk.
east side.
Okay,
of the map,
I
like,
googled
go
it
to the
and
west.
I thought you were going to
Apparently
say
most
a lot that
records
gives you a
show-
car.
So it is 4 to 6 months is how long it
Yeah,
takes.
that
Well,
makes sense.
They were dying from that? Please. 4 to 6 months.
Jeez.
Shut up, liver.
Ben, they didn't
Of course,
have
they didn't have
back then.
vaccines or like hygiene, but like, why were they dying? It's so weird.
I don't know, everybody's
They
weaker
didn't have
back
vitamin C.
Victor Pham writes in and says, what are some untold stories in gaming that you would like to see uncovered? For example, will we ever know why Sean Layden left Sony in the manner that he did? Will we ever know what went wrong with Scalebound's development? Keep up the good work. Thank you, Victor.
Let's give away all our good investigative reporting ideas, shall we? Let's just give them away.
I feel like
Jason, just give us your list.
we've answered this before. And like in a story,
You guys, I want to hear your.
All right, I have an answer to this.
Please,
which
take it away,
is
Maddie.
vague enough that if I ever report it out, it'll hopefully still be interesting and read by some people. Which is to say that it's become very trendy, especially at big budget studios now, to have a diversity and inclusion program, which is usually part of human resources. And a lot of studios have them now, and they point to those whenever any controversy comes up. But I know plenty of people who work at those studios and are at those programs, and they are of varying quality. I'll put it that way. And it's super interesting to me how some of those studios are doing it right and some of them aren't. And that's not always apparent to everybody else how that works, and which studios are doing evidence-based work on how to not have discrimination problems arise, and which ones are just doing lip service. I would love to tell that story someday, and maybe I will.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Very good one.
That's a good one.
We've talked about it before, I think, and I think Kyle, your pick was the Kojima story, the Kojima leaving Konami story. That might be near the
Want,
top
like,
of my
a Konami
list.
head and Kojima to just record like an 8-hour podcast where they both are like arguing,
just
like, no, this is how it happened. No,
Yes,
this is how it
let them
happened.
fight.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I just know.
I suspect both sides are like, you know what I mean? Like everyone's kind of like points to Konami, but I bet both sides had some stuff going
Of
on.
course, Kojima's a prima donna, you know. But I mean, the whispers I hear that, like, yeah, it was pretty rough in that office, you know. So I just want that big piece, and it's shocking that it hasn't come out yet, as far as I've seen.
I wonder if there's like one central character to that story of like it's Kojima versus this one guy at Konami who is just a dick, and like he's the guy who came up with like change your email every week so no one can actually consistently contact you and get your phone number. I think
And
mine. It's
that guy, Solid Snake.
Oh, he works
Or
there.
at least that's what he
We're gonna
goes
get
by.
It's David Hayter. He worked at Konami the whole time. I think my story, it's not like a huge like mystery or anything, but I just want to see what the ongoing tale of as like a huge Dota fan, like what it was like for Valve to start working with IceFrog, because he's like a
Yes.
notoriously secretive guy. No one really,
People
no
have
one
tried
knows.
to get that one.
Yeah,
before.
yeah. There have been like sometime every once in a while on Reddit, you'll see like I think it's this guy because of these things, and it never really properly materializes. But I would like to
Nobody
see.
knows who he is.
Nobody knows who he is.
No one knows. Well, hey, Jason, if you want to find out, like I would totally be down to read that.
Jason seems
Yeah.
interested.
I would just like the scene of like Valve on one side of the negotiating table and IceFrog on the other, and IceFrog getting so much just things like, no, I'll still update the original mod for a while, and your game that you're gonna make is bound by my rules and the rules of this old mod. Also, I will never talk publicly. I
No
will
one
be
will know
the
my real name. I will
Yeah.
never actually talk to
Yeah.
you on
Yeah.
the record.
I'm the only one who will have like real final say over how this game is balanced.
It
And
rules.
like whatever other what other stipulations he might have, like I will make 2 posts on Twitter, and both of those are translated from my Weibo account from China. So like who knows, like I would just love to see them two hashing it out, and Valve being like, yeah, I guess this will be fine. Valve, who's notoriously just does whatever they want, to just
it is hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why that story is so hard, is because nobody at Valve is going to want to talk to you, and neither is IceFrog. Who's to
Yeah.
say how I know this?
I like in that image of Valve and IceFrog on the table. I like to imagine Suriel IceFrog is just like a censored black box across from Gabe.
I
Newell.
will balance the original mod still.
Suriel, honestly, if I told you right now on my laptop that you can't see, I have a picture of IceFrog, and it's like, we're talking HD as all hell.
Screen share.
No, hang on. And also the full name of IceFrog. How much would you pay for me to rotate my laptop right now?
Oh, wow.
I would pay good money for that.
I mean, over $300?
Oh, I easily over $300.
Would you
Yeah,
pay?
you could put that up for auction,
Yeah,
and a whole lot
exactly.
of people would pay for that.
It's a Patreon tier.
Let's make it a Patreon goal.
Oh, very smart. Yeah.
Exactly.
Honestly, okay,
At
give me,
$20,000, we will reveal who I sprayed.
give me the number, Surreal. What's your number?
I have done probably like maybe 1,000, depends on like the format.
Yeah, what can you personally afford, Surreal? is
Yeah,
really-
yeah, exactly. Is
How
it a
much do you have in your
PNG? Is
savings
it a
account? Please
JPEG?
reveal it.
Yeah. Well, you can sell that bed behind you. What else you got? You
That's
got to
true,
see this
yeah.
laptop, man. It's hot. It's amazing.
Some mirrors. Those mirrors will go for a few hundred.
Oh yeah.
It's also, but there's also the chance like that without any identifying information, it's gonna be like that scene in that one Justice League cartoon where Lex Luthor embodies the Flash, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take off his mask. I don't know who this is,
Yes.
Now, Surreal,
so I
I
have no
don't.
way to identify him."
I don't want to alarm you, but never mind. The computer can't even handle booting up an image. I googled random guy, but all right, never mind. That joke isn't working. Okay, Jason, is there one that's the top of your head for the Hail Mary story?
Well, I want to hear Kirk's first. Kirk didn't give us one.
I guess I was going to say one that would be something that might be yours too, and that's the full story of Final Fantasy Versus 13. I feel like a lot of those behind the scenes Japanese studio stories just don't get told because of the language barrier, and I would love to know what happened there,
Japanese.
because that would be, I'm sure, a fascinating story.
For me, my dream one, I just talked about this the other day on Kind of Funny, so sorry if this is a dupe. But one of the dream stories
Reusing
I've had-
content. This is just
Yeah,
weak,
right?
Jason. We
One of the
expect
dream
better of you.
stories I've had in my head for a while is I want to know the play-by-play, day to day, exactly what happened between the announcement of the Xbox One and the reversal, the DRM reversal that summer. So I want to know exactly what it was like in those boardrooms with Phil Harrison and Don Matrick and Phil Spencer arguing over whether this should go ahead, and their mixed messaging and just
It's great. People will come around. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, like how many times
I
did they
want to
say
watch a
that before
documentary
they realized it wasn't working?
That needs to be like an HBO, like Macmillan style documentary, not just an investigative story. That needs to be like a full on give it the works. There aren't enough documentaries about video games.
Yeah, I agree. X Downpour has a very simple question. Since I'm still in my Final Fantasy addiction mode right now, who has the better theme song? Is it Terra from 6 or Aerith from 7?
How do you compare those two? They are trying to do such different things. And
Well,
they're both incredible.
Kirk is the music expert here.
Kirk, do you remember Terra's theme?
Kirk
I
has
do
a-
remember. No, I played 6 though. I know Terra's theme. I don't have the same emotional attachment, so it doesn't quite work. Only because I love Aerith's theme, and I love the music of Final Fantasy VII. I just played. Nope, sorry, not going to say
Please
anything
don't.
about the
Thank
Final
you.
Fantasy VII
You
remake.
didn't just
Stopping
play it at
myself
all.
right now.
Thank
Didn't
you.
Just nothing that I just played. That music is really good, so I would say I guess I prefer that, but it's impossible to say whether one is better than the other.
You
They're
played-
both fantastic.
You played part of 6, but you didn't get far enough to be able to like associate that music with like
Right, like I don't have the emotional connection. And I
Understand.
like Aerith's theme. I mean, come on. Like the things that music accompanies in that game, like
It's
it
incredible.
becomes seared into your emotional memory.
I'm most interested if anybody
Same
in the
with
community has
Terra's
the...
theme, though.
What's that? Okay, but I'm
No, it's just
interested if anybody in the community
no
has like...
spoilers, no spoilers.
Yes, please. Has the opinion of like they like one game more, but they appreciate the other song more. Because I feel like everybody who likes 6 more will say that Terra's theme is better. But I mean, come on. If you are
I
a
don't know
member,
if that's true because I'm not really a Final Fantasy VII person, but I love the soundtrack a lot.
Okay.
I think it's great. I just
Mhm.
think it's objectively great, and I listened to it a ton before I ever got around to playing the game, just because I thought it was so great, and I like Nobuo Uematsu's work so much. So
yeah,
I think there also are maybe more full orchestral and like fully realized versions of the Final Fantasy VII score than the Final Fantasy
Yeah,
VI
it's
scores.
very
So it also
beloved.
gives it a bit of an unfair advantage that we know
True.
Cloud's theme because we've heard like full
a
friggin'
billion OC
Right,
remixes
right,
of it.
right.
Yeah.
yeah. Do you think it's? We were talking about this in the deepest dive or Final Fantasy VII Game Club discussion, but I mean, at this point, 7's remake has the best Final Fantasy soundtrack of all time, right? Is there any argument left? I
Mm.
always,
It's
I
really
was an
good.
8-man myself
That's
up
quite
until
a
this.
declaration.
Yeah,
Honestly-
don't do this. We gotta
Honestly,
rank 'em.
I think
We
if
gotta
you're-
it's tough.
comfortably prepare this.
I have a sort of a take. I think that that's a tough thing to say only because 7 has an unfair advantage in that they're doing so much clever stuff with that soundtrack because they're taking an existing soundtrack and they're not just doing it up with like, you know, full real instruments and stuff. They're also reimagining it and doing musically doing the same thing that they're doing with the game.
Yeah,
And that's just operating on a different level than every other Final Fantasy soundtrack. So it's almost it's not totally, but it is a different thing in a kind of significant way. So it's sort of hard to compare them because of that.
Yeah.
Also, 7 soundtrack would not exist with the previous game soundtracks. Like, for example, Aerith's theme, the one you guys all love and obsess over, is a variation.
Okay, but like, so the very first guitar song ever played is always going to be the greatest guitar solo.
No, but they're very close. I mean, yeah.
The other ones wouldn't exist without this.
No, it's
who invented guitars? You know what I mean?
Jason,
Jason,
this is what our podcast.
I know what you're saying, Jason. I'm just giving you.
We understand your point. We just have to give you a little.
From Final Fantasy VI is literally the same progressions as Aerith's theme. Aerith's theme is just a build on that. It's like, I don't know what the musical terminology would be, but it's like a variation on the opera theme for Final Fantasy VI. So I don't know if you can really compare any of them in a one-to-one way.
Yeah, I hope that's a satisfying answer for you, X Downpour. The answer is Aerith's theme, I think. Okay, ZZ Beefcake ZZ. I'm very sorry. Wants us to play a game about, it's like free association, but it's food association. So below I've listed video game characters. All characters have to eat something. Please say the first food that comes to your mind. For example, Sonic the Hedgehog, chili dogs. Okay.
Curly fries.
Okay, great. But hang on, that was just the example. We got a lot of
Sonic the restaurant.
Hasn't started yet.
Yeah, that must be it.
All right, so I guess everybody just shout out something if it comes into your mind. Crash Bandicoot.
Wampa fruit.
There we go. Kyle, correct. Yes, you won. You won Beefcake's love. Okay. Spyro the Dragon.
Oh,
Kraft mac and cheese.
Wait, Spyro choking on a hot dog?
Yeah, man. He'd cook the hot dog on a little.
Oh yeah,
marshmallow. I kind of
that works.
Yeah. Same idea. Kyle
it's so stupid, but I can only think of gems of him like trying to eat one of those gems in the world. Yeah. Naked Snake.
Snake.
Cigarette.
Yeah, snake. Cigarettes. He just eats them.
He's eating them.
Yeah, I was gonna say like cooked snake or something, like a literal snake that he basically.
Well, some days you feed on a tree frog. Tree frog. All over the place.
Free frog.
The old free trog. Lara
the Dota
Croft.
guy, yeah.
Lara Croft.
This is tough because we see her eat a lot in those games. She's eating a lot of beef jerky and stuff.
That's true.
So we kind of know the answer.
Yeah, like venison, like cooked venison.
Yeah.
Well,
like
my mind went to like the butler, and then like
what is she
like
eating
a
at
proper
home?
Woman. Yeah.
Oh, like tea cakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
She just drinks tea and drinks from her swimming pool. Yeah, that's her life. I think there's like
like does gymnastics around her house.
Oh yeah.
Kirby.
Everything.
Hell yeah. The world.
Kirby.
Axel,
human beings, so you can transform into them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a Pinocchio story. They're just taking a long time to get up to that moment when he finally becomes a human being. Axel from Twisted Metal.
Nuts and bolts.
But he's like imprisoned by the giant wheels for arms. So I think the last thing he would want to do is eat more.
Soda
cars.
You can drink it with a straw. You can eat it hands free.
Ooh, smart. I love it.
Okay.
Oh boy. Glover. Pies. Love it.
Hamburger Helper.
Travis.
Hamburger Helper, says Jeff.
Brilliant, Jeff. Travis Touchdown.
A pizza. Man eats pizza.
That's his thing? All right. Perfect. Thank you.
That cereal?
Yeah, I was agreeing with pizza.
All right. It's the correct choice. Thank you, Beefcake, for your submission. Crater says the save icon in almost every computer program out there is the image of a 3.5-inch floppy disk, which has been obsolete for decades, yet the image persists. This isn't true in video games since the save/saving icons vary with every game. Are there any universal, quote, this means the same thing symbol in games you can think of?
Oh, yes. Oh, man, I totally thought about this.
Yeah, what do you got?
I have a million thoughts on this. Wait, so, okay, here's a funny one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a funny one. So I think that the health symbol is a very universal one.
Yeah.
And you know how you have health and grenades? And I think the grenades are also pretty universal because a lot of games have grenades. But I'll always think about, and this is based on a blog post about the UI in the first Mass Effect, and how, do you remember in the first Mass Effect what the symbol for a grenade was?
No.
There was the health kit symbol, and it was the cross, so you knew that was health. Then the grenade, it looked like a hockey puck, because in Mass Effect, that's what the grenades looked like. If you remember this, you would
because it was made in Canada.
It was, I guess that's why, right? It was some Canadian pride. So it was this really weird logo of Lucky Puck with wind coming out of it, kind of, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Weird.
And I've always thought about how they should have just made it look like a grenade, like with an old, like, pineapple grenade. Even though that's not what it looked like, they chose to make it look like the in-game grenade, and it's the most confusing icon I've ever seen. And that just made me think of that.
Or Kirk, as someone who played Half-Life Alyx, as Serial can also attest to, they can start making it just a measuring tape dispenser, and we'll all know that that's grenades.
Right. Oh my god, I love the grenades in that game. They're so good.
Kirk, do you think that's going to be your game of the year?
Oh my god, who can say? Well, I think that everyone has to choose from just the games of the last couple months. So yeah, maybe. Yeah. It was one of the coolest games I played in a long time.
I think we're going to get to December and everybody's going to be like, oh my god, our game of the year is just like old Jackbox games, because that's all
that's all we played all year.
Finally justice in the world, I say, yeah. I think the exclamation point for a quest, that's nearly universal, right?
That's what I thought of first. And arrows. The basics.
The arrow, yeah.
The map. I think map is kind of hard because like now it's kind of a waypoint. Like phones have universalized a lot of this stuff. Like you'll see a kind of a Google Maps waypoint, but sometimes it's like a map that's folded up, or it's like a radar. There's a lot of inconsistency with the map icon.
Yeah. Scott Castro says, hello, Ben and the CLCs and Maddie, Kirk, and Jason. If you could snap your fingers and be the best in the world at any one thing, what would that one thing be?
I have an answer.
Finance.
Finance? That's so lame. You could just look at a number and you'll be
an oil baron.
Well, oil is not a good thing to be a baron of right now.
But I'll be the best in the world.
That's true.
I'll find the best oil.
I'm the best oilist.
If you own oil right now, they have to give you money. Like that's how it works, right?
I think so.
So true. And it's definitely not a resource that's going to run out and stop being a good one to invest in. That's not it.
Okay. So I have one of these. I stole one from my partner Emily because I asked her this question because I was like, the best guitar player. Like I was just trying to think of stupid things, and she was like, I would want to be the best in the world at convincing people that they want to do something. Ooh, and I think that is that would be an amazing skill to be the best.
Oh my God.
But then you become Kilgrave, and that's
maybe
scary.
Your girlfriend, or
you become Livegrave. You become the best version.
Yeah. What is Emily trying to convince you of, Kirk?
She convinces me that I want to do things all the time. I don't even know that I want
you to say this.
Yeah,
that's true.
Wow.
You should use this answer.
I like counting money. You know, it's a good answer along the lines of what Kirk said. Be the best in the world at getting people's attention. I think that could serve you well in a lot of ways.
What do you think that says about you deep down, Jason?
It says a lot of screwed up things.
I think mine would be the best in the world at teaching someone something, or teaching anyone something.
That's the selfless Maddie answer.
It's such a Maddie answer.
That's a good answer. That is a good one.
How are you all making money off this, though? I don't get it. Let's see.
Teachers make a lot of money.
That's true. I think so.
That's what I've always heard.
That famously well-paid profession. Yeah.
Kyle, what's it like being a teacher for your daughter these last couple months? What time is it?
It's good in this modern age because you just hand them their iPad and say, "I'll check back with you in 20 minutes."
Have fun learning.
No, it's been hard. It's been weird. Hard's not the right word. It's just about like staying focused and like getting things done because it's so easy to be like, we could just play Animal Crossing for like 4 hours and do your homework later. It'll be fine.
Have you learned anything that you're teaching her? Do you have like a moment of, wow.
They teach math differently now.
Like Incredibles 2 talked about.
That's always true somehow.
Yeah.
Every few years they change
I've
it
heard
up.
that. Yeah.
But it's like
has math changed since we learned it?
Well,
yeah.
I look at
It's all different now.
I look at it and it's confusing to me initially.
Sad map.
I was just gonna say it's confusing me initially, but like to sort of take it from a positive angle, like the way they teach it now, like kids have a better understanding of how it works. Like it's less about just like memorizing the steps and more like like visualizing the numbers and what they mean and how they connect and stuff like that. Like my wife, who is she has a master's degree in math and taught math for many years. I thought she would be kind of like frustrated by it or be like, oh, they changed math, but she looks at it and she's like, no, this is great. I'm so glad they did it this way. This is so
nice. That makes sense. I could see the beginning maths having like an improved process for onboarding people to those concepts instead of just being like, here, memorize a bunch of rules, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason, our kids are going to be way smarter than us. It's going to be great.
I can't wait. My kid's already way smarter than me. She can roll over from her front to her back and vice versa. I can't do that.
Nice. Stick an iPad under her, she'll start learning. That's
God. Jordan Schaefer wrote in, he says, what I wanted to ask is everybody's thoughts on the games already out and those currently set to be published by Xbox Game Studios this year. For context, the confirmed list so far is as follows: Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Bleeding Edge, Gears Tactics, Minecraft Dungeons, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Tell Me Why, which is the Don't Nod game, Wasteland Remastered, Psychonauts 2, Halo Infinite, and probably Forza Motorsport 8. This has to be the most bizarre and diverse lineups ever from a publisher, right? I don't know how many of these games will be good or come out, but do you think that Xbox deserves more credit just for the wild collection of games they're putting out this year?
Interesting.
It's a good point.
Some of those are acquisitions that aren't actually being published by Microsoft, right? Like, is Psychonauts 2 published by Microsoft? I thought they had.
I think it will be now because it was Starbreeze, but I can't imagine that's holding true at this point. Yeah,
I'm not sure. And Wasteland 3, I know, is a different publisher. So, like, a few of those are just. Well, I think so. Let me answer that by making a prediction, and I say this with the caveat that I actually am excited for some of these games. I can't wait to play Ori one day.
Well, Ori's out and it's really good.
Looks cool. Yeah, I'm excited to play. I'm waiting for Ori to come to Switch, just like the first time. But here's a prediction. I think that in a couple of weeks we'll see a big Xbox event or a couple of big Xbox events for their new next gen plan or whatever. And I think that is going to have some impressive stuff because I feel like they have a couple of years now of acquisitions and project green lights and things to show off. And I think this is a good opportunity for them to be like, all right, here you go, Sony, eat this. Like, we're going to show you every single thing we're doing in the next couple of years. And I think that is going to be impressive.
Well, that's interesting.
This year I haven't seen anything that is like getting me super excited, but I'm also not a Halo guy and not a huge Gears guy, so maybe that stuff isn't for me. But I am excited.
Psychonauts 2, though.
But no, Psychonauts 2, I'm excited for. I just didn't associate that with Microsoft. But I'm excited for like. Also, Psychonauts 2 won't just be on like Microsoft platforms. It'll be on everything, I think. Like, it'll definitely be on PlayStation because it was announced before the Microsoft bought Double Fine.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for like what they're showing because I want to play a new Fable. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for like some other stuff that they have in the cards for down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, the variety, I think, is Jordan's point. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, just throwing Microsoft Flight Simulator in there, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Just the range on this is wild. But so
yeah, that's true, especially compared to Sony, which is like, we're gonna make these Game of the Year quality, beautiful games, but they're also all gonna be third-person, sad action adventures.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
no, they're great. No, those are some of the best games of the year, like Horizon, God of War, like some of my favorite games. Can't wait for Last of Us 2, but definitely a variety problem, that is for sure.
Yeah, well, thinking about like Microsoft's future too, you talk about how they've made these acquisitions, but like who would be ready to go? I think the closest would be probably Playground with Fable, but I mean, with the Initiative, they're probably so far away from even having a piece of concept art for revealing what they're working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking that like that Microsoft. When they do their proper reveal event or events, I think they're going to be showing like, here's what's coming in the next couple of years, not just like, here's what's coming this fall and like early next year. I think we're going to see the roadmap for the next couple of years.
Yeah. Jason, here's an impossible question for you, but I can feel the community wanting to ask you. How many unannounced games do you know about right now?
I mean, not that many. Like,
really?
I don't really like to find.
They've all been
out.
delayed.
Yeah. I don't really like to find things out and then sit on them. Like, I don't really like keeping secrets. So I purposely tell people sometimes, like, don't tell me this thing. Like, I don't really want to know this thing. Also, there isn't some treasure trove of like top secret games that are like, you oftentimes you see these rumors on Reddit that are like, here's all these things that are coming, and they're never actually true. Like, a lot of these companies, if you think it through, like, you have a good idea of what they're doing, and a lot of what you don't know is just stuff that's in pre-production prototyping phases and might not actually ever happen. Like, at any given company, like Ubisoft, for example, right? Like, you have a pretty good idea of what they've got for the next couple of years. Like, it's not announced yet, but we know there's a new Assassin's Creed Vikings game coming this fall. We know there's a new Far Cry coming like next whatever. We know Watch Dogs Legion they've announced. We have a good idea of what they have. And then anything beyond that, is mostly stuff that is like still going through these various phases of green lighting. So it might never happen. Like they've taken all these different projects and put them together and taken all sorts of like Far Cry this and spin off of this. And a lot of these things just never actually happen. So when it comes to like knowledge of like, oh, I know what's coming in like 2022 or 2023, so often that just never actually comes to fruition. So I would actually sound like a moron if it was like, oh, I heard about this thing that just got top secretly, like a handful of people are working on at such company, because chances are it's not going to happen. So many of these things just get killed or transform in some way or another.
Yeah. Phil S. says, hello, everybody, and Triple Click. In your opinions, what has been the absolute highlight of the music rhythm game genre? For me, it's hard to beat Amplitude on PS2. That's true, Phil, but it turns out Frequency, I think, is a better game, but that's just my opinion.
Also cool.
But
man.
what do you think is the top of that pile?
What about Dance Dance Revolution, though?
I mean,
just kidding. I mostly just remember that one year when everybody I knew had a copy of Rock Band, and just every party was a Rock Band party, and that was a really fun summer of my life that will never be recaptured again. But
it's too bad. I miss the plastic
great.
Instruments.
Yeah,
I would say Rock Band 2 was the peak for me because, well, I learned actual drums partly because of Rock Band. Like I like knew how drums worked and stuff, but I had never really practiced them. And then I loved playing drums in Rock Band. And since it's so close to the actual instrument, I started practicing actual drums. So I'll always love that game. And I feel like Rock Band 3
video game actually teaches you real world skills.
Yeah, well, Guitar Smith teaches guitar too. That game has come a long way since it first came out. But so I liked Rock Band 2 because Rock Band 3 was where they went totally nuts. Like that was with the guitar controller with that Jaguar controller with buttons for every single string on every fret. So you could really learn guitar. And then you could they had a special Squire that you could actually play guitar parts. And there's a piano. And it was amazing, but it was almost like they jumped the shark. Rock Band 2 is kind of the peak. And then I would say that Beat Saber people talk about Beat Saber, but Beat Saber is awesome. That's the VR rhythm game that is extremely good. And it's, I don't know if it's the best or anything, but I do really like playing it.
Yeah.
I mean, Hanson, we're probably maybe on the same page, but in terms of focusing fully on the music and really dialing into what you need to do to interact with the music, Rhythm Heaven still does it for me, man. Just because it's it's less about
simple.
It's still about it's not about hitting a million buttons at different times. Mm-hmm. It's just focusing purely on the beat. And so it lets me absorb the music so much more that Rhythm Heaven is still maybe my favorite rhythm game.
I love Rhythm Heaven, but at the same time, I'm not interacting with the music in a really fun way. I feel like a robot at times playing Rhythm Heaven. The art really brings just a whole flavor of humanity, but you're actually thinking about what you're doing. It's just okay, dun, 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 dun.
See, I love that simplicity though, because it's I focus so much on the beat in that way, where if I'm playing Guitar Hero, which I do love as well, half of that is focused on making sure I hit the right colored button along with the music. But Rhythm Heaven is just purely focused on the beat, which is why
I gotta shout out Thumper. I realized that I forgot to say Thumper.
Okay.
Thumper is one of the best music games I've ever played. That game rips.
And
what about Elite Beat Agents?
Yeah,
it's great.
Not my favorite.
It's good.
No,
it's good. But,
that's one where I like the presentation more than the gameplay a lot more too. When I think about
Beat Sneak Bandit was kind of that way. It was a lot of fun. But
this is a really personal answer, but I think my favorite moment in a rhythm game ever discovered there was the mobile rhythm game from Taito, Groove Coaster.
Oh yeah.
Where one of the things was that there are hidden notes, and you only can discover the hidden notes if you know what the beat is. So it's if there's a symbol every other note, and you press it outside of what the notes are showing you, and you get a bonus for it. It's really cool discovering if I actually know what the rhythm of this so well that I don't even need the notes to be on the screen to be able to tap along to it.
Yeah. Nice. The soundtrack I know isn't that great, but I talk about it, I feel on every episode of the MinMax show. But Amplitude on PS4, I think, is one of the most underappreciated games of the generation. I love that game. I think it took the formula from the original days, Frequency and Amplitude, and improved upon every aspect of the gameplay. Soundtrack not quite as strong as a Frequency or even maybe an Amplitude back in the day, but I still think that game deserves a lot more love because. Also, we should just appreciate harmonics more. The fact that they're still around, going strong, it is mind-boggling. Okay. Oh, Phil S. also says that he's the reigning champion in photo mode snap for Hellblade. If you remember his submission, Kyle.
Yeah,
It's very good.
He deserves it.
Yeah, good job, Phil. Okay, Stud Muffin wrote in for the perfect game to play this week, and he didn't even know this was happening. But Stud Muffin wrote in and said, it's time to play Min-Max Family Feud. We have 10 gaming questions for you, and the survey answers are compiled by over 30 members of the Min-Max community on Discord. So this works out beautifully because we can make it 3-on-3. Okay.
All right.
But how will we decide the teams?
Guys versus girls? I don't. Let's see.
That seems fair to you guys.
So I guess it has to be like Family Feud, right? Where everybody just imagine that you're walking up to the little podium. So it has to be like a 1v1, and then you buzz in by saying your name, just to make it nice and clean. And then you get to answer and play or pass, whatever you want to do. So let's see.
And you'll make faces when we make sexual innuendos and stuff.
I cannot wait to make those sexual innuendo faces.
You got to do little dances in reaction to our answers.
Absolutely.
You got to look at the camera every once in a while. Like, I can't believe the ridiculous things this person just said.
Okay, so who wants first up?
Oh man,
I'll go.
Sure, I'll go first.
All right, Kyle versus Kirk. It's time to play Family Feud. Okay, here we go. Buzzing with your name.
Okay.
What is one? We polled 30 Min-Max community members. Top bunch of answers are on the board. What's one video game character you wouldn't want to share a bunk bed with?
Kirk.
Bowser's
Bowser.
the top answer! Way to go! Amazing! Player
He's
pass.
huge. He would totally fall on you. And he has spikes on his shells, and they would impale you. It would be horrible.
Yeah, that's tough. All right,
Well
Kyle,
done.
sorry. I guess we won't do the whole thing, but let's see. Runners up are... Does anybody want to guess any runners up here?
One
Sonic
of the Colossi.
What Colossi?
There are no Colossi in here.
Oh, okay.
Donkey Kong.
That's a
Donkey
good
Kong
guess.
is in the runner-up category.
Wario.
Wario's also in
Ganondorf?
there.
Let's just say
Wario would be
Nintendo villains.
farting all night. It
Yeah,
would be pain.
farting.
Yeah, Bowser,
Yeah.
I don't think has ever farted. I don't think that's ever
No, he
happened.
holds it in.
Yeah, he's
Where
a classy
the
dude.
breath comes from.
That's why he's so mad all the time.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, next people to come up. Who wants in?
I'll go.
Sure.
Okay, great. Let's go. Jeffem versus Maddie.
Okay.
What is the most satisfying button in video game controller history?
X.
Hang
Oh,
on.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Lady X, do you have a guess? Maddie,
Does he get to go or?
I thought.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I think you said X before he said his name.
I know,
so I
I'm
guess
sorry.
We'll
That's fine.
get to
That's
you. What is your guess? X? Just generic X? It is
I mean,
not.
I don't know. Well, how else would one select a button? I mean,
I'm
is there
sorry.
any button?
X
It's not
is
on the
not on the
list?
board. Jeffem, can you guess one that is on the board?
Trigger.
We
You
need.
gotta name a trigger.
These are
the answer
Left trigger.
Okay, everybody else, let's try and be specific. Does anybody have
The
a guess?
GameCube A button. Come on.
GameCube A button. It got 1 point. It's in the third tier, so not as
What?
popular.
Jeez, what is this?
Huh.
That's the most satisfying button of all.
What about the under
Yeah,
button?
that's good.
The under.
No,
is
that's
it-
true.
Like
Okay.
elite
What about the
Well, but it's got to be the one
Uh,
everybody voted for. Is it my turn again? How does this work?
You know, now it's just a free for all.
Left click.
So like the mouse
Left
button,
click.
like clicking a mouse. Yeah. left
I'm
click.
sorry, left
Okay.
click is not on the board.
What about the map button
PlayStation
on
button.
the PlayStation 4 controller?
Oh.
Super Nintendo Y.
Kyle? PlayStation touchpad is in the third tier category for that's worth
Okay.
1 point.
But we're still not
Okay.
getting the top
Not
two.
getting the top.
Yeah.
There's one top answer here.
The A button.
Is it like a rock band instrument, like the drums? in
Nope.
Rock band?
It's a very specific controller that's has a very funky version of this type of button.
Like the Dreamcast start button or something.
Ooh, interesting. They love the little triangle.
the
No.
circle pad
Yeah, the
on
little
the
triangle.
Yes, that's not really a
N64
button.
trigger. N64 trigger.
N64
Yeah.
trigger,
Yeah.
that is in the runner-up category. That's worth 2 points, but that's not the top answer.
Okay, good answer though.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer.
The Wiimote Waggle.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Wii Remote A is in the third tier. Okay, so somebody
Or GameCube?
Like the Switch screen cap button. I feel like that's a pretty fun little
the
button to
sound
press.
is
That nice little
perfect.
click sound when you press that? Yeah.
No, the top
Wait, does
answer.
it count the Switch like inserting?
Yeah, are we giving up?
Oh,
Are we
that's
That would be
giving
number
up?
one.
It'll be fun.
No
That'll
one's
be a
implemented
button.
that as gameplay yet, have they? They should.
They should.
No,
They haven't made the
should.
WarioWare for
Might
Switch
violate
yet.
Some
Like,
cert requirements.
it's gonna happen. But the number one answer, the GameCube R and L,
Oh, so that would have okay.
the deep throw
It
trigger.
had to be GameCube thing.
Had to be
I found
GameCube.
those
So
confusing.
Those are weird.
odd, 'cause I hear that that's the button that's hardest to press for Smash players. Like it tires you out the most over time.
Yeah, I
'cause
remember
your
even
hands
playing
start
like
to hurt.
Metroid Prime back in the day, and my fingers getting sore and stuff. But okay, let's see. This is Serial versus Jason. What is a game that is best in short bursts?
Jason.
Jason.
I was gonna say threes, but that's just me. That's just a me personal thing. So that's not actually my answer. My answer is Tetris.
Tetris is on the board, but it's not the number one answer. Can you top it, Serial?
Short bursts. I'm just gonna go Candy Crush.
Sorry. Does anybody else have a guess for the number one answer?
I mean, I was thinking Bejeweled with the Candy Crush angle.
Okay.
But that's kind of the same.
Street
right?
Fighter.
Think about the year 2020.
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing. There we go.
Oh,
Kyle!
well, sure.
That is true. That is true.
That's not beating Tetris.
Well, hey, gotta try it, Jeff. Gotta try it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, you're
That's just
definitely on the
fresh in
same
everyone's
page.
mind.
Okay.
I thought Tetris too, yeah.
All right. The
Tetris
K's are at
2
it again.
specifically with the bomb.
Yes, yeah. Hatris.
All right, Kirk and Kyle. Who
All
would
right.
be the most interesting developer to grab a drink with?
Kirk.
Kyle.
Kirk.
Hideo Kojima.
That is in the silver category. There is
Okay.
the number
That
one
was my
answer.
answer too, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Well, now you should probably
Yeah.
guess a
That's an
different
easy
one.
one.
Yeah.
Can you top
I
it, Kyle?
got. Do I get to guess again?
You
Right.
get to
Yeah.
top.
Miyamoto.
Miyamoto's also in the silver category. Does
Okay.
anybody have a guess for the number one answer? It's the correct answer.
Schaefer.
Yes, it is Tim
Suda
Schafer.
64. Oh, Tim.
Yeah.
It is the
you were all like, "Yeah, he's hilarious. I guess
Yeah.
he would be a lot of fun to hang out with."
We've had him on our podcast like 4 times,
Yes.
so we're used to it.
But were you drinking in any of them?
Who's to say?
No. You should have been.
Okay, here we go.
Sadly, no.
Last one, Maddie and Jeff. Which company typically puts on the best E3 press conference? Jeff.
Nintendo?
Do you put on?
Really? Okay.
It just means in
Maddie.
general, right?
Yeah.
Like across the board.
Across the board.
I guess so.
I was going to say Nintendo. But they're all so awkward. There's so many blazers. There's no good answer. I guess I'll just say Xbox. I truly don't know.
It was Sony was the number one answer from our community.
Sony.
There we
Oh,
go.
but Ubisoft has
I
the
was gonna say-
bear.
Biffed it.
Oh.
Konami is obviously the answer, unless you.
Sure.
That is
I
true.
mean, Sony did have that.
I think it all.
year, you know. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on how you
Party
see
and
a good.
Shenmue.
Yeah,
Press
like what
conference.
is good about a press conference?
Like, do you want a giant stuffed bear leading a marching band? In that case, Ubisoft.
I was just thinking
is
about that.
maybe-
I was playing a
maybe
lot.
your pick.
I was playing a lot of Just Dance 2014 this week because the quarantine's weird, and I was really thinking about like, man, remember people would complain about like the dance sequences during the press conferences? Like that was so much fun. It was such like a breath of fresh air
best.
every year. It was just wonderful.
Yep.
So every week we pick our favorite question, and then I'm 8-Bit ships out something very nice. This week it is. Hang on.
Hey, hold on. I'm gonna hold this picture up to the camera here.
Yeah.
Based on what you were just talking about. This is a picture that I took at Target like 2 weeks ago. Just Dance 2020 for the Nintendo Wii.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
For the
Impressive.
Wii, you
I
say?
love
Yeah,
it.
that's Just Dance for you.
And it's
That's one of those-
$39.99.
That's one of those releases where you're just relying on a lot of confused parents.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, but we choose our absolute favorite question, and then I'm 8-Bit will ship out. This week, it is the soundtrack to Doki Doki Literature Club. And
Oh,
the
nice.
presentation really looks fantastic.
Yeah. Does that soundtrack have like creepy things on the B side or something? If you play it back, I hope it
It
does.
ought to.
You're listening to it, and it just stops in the middle and like
That would be amazing.
It turns out it's not a soundtrack at all.
But the question is, what is the best email of the week or the best question of the week?
I like the food question though.
That one was
Do I get a vote in this?
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely. All right. I mean,
that was good.
Stud muffin with a Family Feud. There's a lot of calories burned there. It is
True,
good,
that's
but
true.
I think the food one might have been more fun.
It was a pretty fun question.
Are we going food?
Food it up.
All right,
Sure.
there it is. Congratulations, Beefcake. I'm 8-Bit will ship you out the Doki Doki Literature Club. And even if you don't have a record player, it's going to look sweet on a shelf. So thank you so much. I am 8-Bit, and thank you, Beefcake, and everybody else that submitted a wonderful question. And now it's time for something we call Get a Load of This. All right, are you guys decently prepared for Get a Load of This? Do you know how this works?
No.
Kirk, did you tell them?
But I'm prepared to get a load of it and then
All right, perfect. Jeffem, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. Hey, get a load of this, which, by the way, guys, you have to say at the beginning of your thing, otherwise it doesn't count.
That's right.
It's not official.
That's right.
But everyone's working from home nowadays, and it turns out that it also includes NASA. And there was an article on Business Insider about how NASA scientists are now, they sent everyone home, but they're still actually controlling the rover on Mars.
What?
From their home computers, except they didn't have, I mean, obviously NASA has much better computers than everyone, but they also have like very fancy VR goggles that they need in order to, make fine movements on Mars with the rover. But it turns out their workaround solution for it is they're using the old school like movie blue and red 3D glasses. And they jerry-rigged it. They said it's very much the NASA approach to jerry-rigging a solution out of whatever people had at home, and they managed to figure out a way to filter it. And so now they are controlling the rover on Mars with old-style 3D glasses.
That is absurd.
amazing.
Nice.
Wow, good one.
That is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Kyle, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey, get a load of this, you guys. We'll see how this works. It's like an audio thing on my phone, so
Okay.
hopefully I'm not giving you work to edit later, Hanson. But this is from a Twitter account @FunkButcher. I'm not familiar with him, but he in some music program, I'm not familiar with what it is. He put this together. Let's see if this plays well.
Okay.
So you guys are able to hear that? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Good enough. And then so what he does is it's at like a speed of like 60, and then he like puts it way up to like in the 400s. So he speeds that sound clip up to like the 400 rate, and then this is what it sounds like.
Is there audio coming out of your phone?
It sounds like silence.
Oh, it was
Did you hear
very,
it?
very fast.
Oh, so it's the power-up sound?
Yeah. So here I'll play it one more time. So this is
He
it
makes
super
it
sped up. Like,
extremely fast.
so that's like
Nice.
basically like the Mario theme sped up an incredible amount is like a
Right.
power.
Yeah, Koji
Oh.
Kondo does a lot of those things, or it's
Yeah.
just like one thing is like something else backwards, or like an Easter egg to something
Mhm.
else.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like
that's
the opposite
awesome.
of the Hans Zimmer thing, or of take a track and slowing it down so much that it just becomes weird ambient sounds.
Yeah.
Like
How do you
speeding up.
of how the bushes are also the clouds in Super Mario?
Well, that's what I was
Right,
thinking
yeah.
too. It could have
I
been just a
think-
technical limitation that is now
Yeah.
like these two iconic noises that I'm learning now were the same all along.
I love it. I
It's
love
wild.
it. Maddie, do you want to go next?
I don't have a prepared get a load of this though.
That's fine. That's fine then. Jeffem? I'm sorry,
What?
Suriel?
So mine is more of a PSA than like a cool tidbit. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have a Switch, in which case you want to get two-factor authentication on that thing, on that account, since there's currently a round of Switch hacks going around that can easily break into your account if you just have it password protected. So if you're reading this, I would, as soon as you can, find a computer and get two-factor authentication so your account doesn't get hacked.
All right. We'll get a load of that.
Good PSA.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you didn't say get a load of this at the start, Cyril. so it doesn't
I
count.
said, okay.
And everyone's accounts are hacked now.
That's right. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
That
Kurt?
really backfired on me.
Kirk, did you got one?
Yeah, I have one. Okay, so this is someone I found on Twitter who's been doing this for a while. Her name is Mary. She's an actor, and she's trapped in quarantine and has been performing scenes from her favorite musicals in this Twitter thread that I'm gonna try this. All right, I'm gonna try and play it for you guys. This is her, and she performs both parts and edits. She does the whole thing herself, and it's genius. Okay, so I'm gonna hold this up so you can kind of see. So if you can see this,
it's from Hamilton, right?
This is Les Mis.
Oh, that's Les Mis. Okay.
Oh, we can't hear it.
Yeah,
Right. So I have to hold it to the mic so you can see it.
it.
So basically, I could never do it. It would not do it justice to watch this over a stream on someone's phone. But her name is Mary Neely, and each one of these videos is a very short excerpt, and each one is a brilliant work of art. There is one from Hamilton. She does Eliza's song. It's super good.
Some good Lin-Manuel Miranda makeup. I've seen it. It's very good.
It's really funny because it's played straight, and then she comes in as Lin-Manuel Miranda, and it's like becomes hilarious just because there's this like doofy looking Hamilton there reacting to everything. They're all incredible though. If you like musical theater, even if you don't, I recommend them. And again, her name is Mary Neely.
Nice.
And she's very easy.
And the link will be in the show notes for everybody. Mine is also music related, where I just learned, I think on the Blank Check podcast, they quickly referenced this, and I'd never heard of it. But you guys know that in 1978, there was a film that was a musical that was just all of Sgt. Pepper's. Do you know what this?
I've never seen that.
Yeah. So it's Sgt. Pepper's, but they got to play the Beatles in this film, the Bee Gees.
Wow.
And it is horrific. And so
are they like lip syncing to the original tracks, or are the Bee Gees covering Sgt. Pepper's? 'Cause that would be sweet.
There's also other covers in there, and it has like a roster where George Burns is like the evil mayor or something, and of course and Aerosmith is in it, Earth, Wind and Fire, Alice Cooper, and then George Martin helped out with the music apparently, but Steve Martin's in it, and he does a cover of Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and it's like a jokey cover. It is one of the worst things I've ever seen. It
sounds amazing.
So bad.
Not bad at all.
Apparently, before the film's release, Robin Gibb of the Bee Gees announced, quote, "There is no such thing as the Beatles now. They don't exist as a band and never perform Sgt. Pepper live in any case. When ours comes out, it will, in effect, be as if theirs never existed."
Wow.
And then this film came out.
Thing to say.
Yeah, and it's at like 12%.
That's the plot of Yesterday, isn't it?
I think
I
so.
guess that's true.
He
Wow,
invented
he was kind of
Yesterday.
He should get a screenwriting credit for that movie.
Yeah, but it's at like 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it is abysmal. And the entire thing's uploaded if you want to just scrub through it and see what a nightmare this film is. But
is that the worst Beatles related thing? Or is there
that's a hard one to decide.
Are you counting Beatles?
There's that animated show, which that was pretty rough, right?
I think the worst thing is their E3 press conference debut for Microsoft where they're talking about Beatles Rock Band, and it's
that
just
Destiny music video. I don't know if you want to count that. That's pretty rough too.
Oh, that's incredible though. That's
guess, yeah.
It's so bad that it slipped around the other.
I am remembering. Was it they played the Beatles Rock Band on stage at E3? Was that, or was it just Rock Band? It was pretty heinous.
It's rough because they come out and it
might not have been the Beatles game.
No, so it's Paul and Ringo, and you can tell like, well, we've done enough of this. We'll just chit chat, and people will love us. We'll have a good time. So it's just them coming out and trying to be loose and casual and just like talk to each other about how cool it is to be there. But just in that environment, it just feels dead and bizarre, and you feel all the energy from the crowd just completely evaporate, and then people are just watching two old guys on a stage confused about where they are. It sucks.
That's every conference, though.
I guess that's true.
Kind of true.
Jason, did you have one?
Yeah, sure. So get a load of this.
Woo!
So
there we go.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't know about you guys, but I really miss NFL football. Especially, and I miss sports in general. It's just not something is off about not having sports right now. So one of the things that is happening is that ESPN every Monday night has been playing old Monday Night Football broadcasts, which is wild. Like they're picking some of the best ones. A few weeks ago, it was like that crazy Chiefs Rams game from 2017 or 2018, and like yesterday or 2 days ago, it was like Colts Patriots in like 2005, and it's like a crazy throwback. It's just been a lot of fun to watch, but it's also really surreal because when you're watching, so they still have commercial breaks, but they also have these moments where like the broadcasters will throw to the studio for like some breaking news or a highlight of something that happened that day. But because these are old broadcasts and ESPN doesn't want you to think that they're live, they just don't do it. So you'll be watching and it'll be like Al Michaels and John Madden, the commentators, being like, and now to Chris in the studio for this. and then it's just silent for 10 seconds, and you're just watching. And you're just watching this game, and it's just silent as it's supposed to be the studio show, but it's dead air, and it is so crazy and fun to watch. So these games have been really fun to watch. I've been tuning in for like a few minutes every Monday just to see what it's like. I wish I could gamble on them, but sadly,
that's perfect. Well,
you could trick someone who hasn't seen one before. Like,
yeah,
that's perfect. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the MinMax Show, everybody. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having
our pleasure.
It was so fun.
Don't forget to check out Triple Click, the podcast.
Yeah. First big episode outside of the intro. When's that airing?
The 23rd. Yeah, this Thursday.
Oh, awesome. It'll be ready to go. And it's going to be weekly?
That's
weekly,
right.
every Thursday.
Awesome. We look forward to checking it out. Any chance of a video version by chance?
Probably not. That's a lot of work, as you guys, I'm sure, know.
It's another layer.
We might put the audio on YouTube if that counts.
Okay. Yeah, that's close enough. We'll take it. Cool. Again,
Maybe. I don't know if we can even do that, but we'll see. I shouldn't make promises before. Well, I did say might. There's a lot of weight on that might.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Cool. We appreciate you swinging by. And thanks to MinMax's $50 supporters on Patreon. I am 8-Bit, Easygoing Gaming, Jawar Hello, Seth Walker, The Smack, Mark Seliga, Jesse Vitelli, Mirko Rico Torreno, Zachary Pliggy, Ludwig Roque, James Smith, Steve Bamdad, David Lucci, Rob Hudak, Yarrow, Michael Jacques, and Cameron Wardlaw. Thank you so much. And to everybody, be good, have fun, let's go.